Welcome back to Eject Media, where every VHS tape holds something strange, forgotten, and unforgettable. Tonight, we're diving into a stack of 100 cult classics and horror oddities that prove just how weird and inventive the VHS era was. So cue up the VCR and let's press play. Symptoms, 1974. Symptoms is one of those haunting psychological horror films that creeps under your skin slowly, almost without you realizing it. Directed by José Ramón Larraz, the story follows Helen, played by Angela Pleasance, who invites her friend Anne to spend some time with her in a sprawling but isolated English country mansion. At first, everything seems quiet and almost idyllic, but that calm doesn't last. From the moment Anne arrives, it's clear something isn't quite right. Helen's behavior is strange, shifting from warmth to coldness in an instant, and the house itself feels weighed down by secrets. The woods surrounding the estate add to the atmosphere, beautiful but oppressive, almost as if they're hiding something sinister. What makes Symptoms so effective is the way it builds unease through suggestion rather than spectacle. The tension grows out of small details. An odd look, a sudden mood swing, a shadow moving in the background. Angela Pleasance gives a mesmerizing performance, her fragile voice and unsettling presence pulling the viewer into Helen's disturbed world. As the days pass, Anne starts to uncover pieces of Helen's past, and it becomes clear that the mansion holds dark memories of betrayal, loss, and obsession. The line between reality and delusion blurs, and what begins as a quiet retreat spirals into something far more disturbing. Larraz's direction emphasizes atmosphere over shock. Long silences, the muted sounds of nature, and the slow pacing combine to create a sense of dread that lingers. When violence does break through, it feels all the more shocking because of the quiet that surrounds it. By the end, Symptoms leaves you with the unsettling sense that you've spent time inside a mind unraveling. It's a film that doesn't just scare, it unsettles, sticking with you long after it's over. For fans of psychological horror, it's a hidden gem, rich in atmosphere and dripping with unease. The Severed Arm, 1973. Survival can push people to unimaginable extremes, and The Severed Arm, directed by Tom Alderman, explores just how far desperation can go. The film begins with six friends exploring a remote cave. When a collapse traps them underground for 2 weeks, hunger and fear push them to a horrifying decision. They draw straws to decide who will sacrifice a limb to survive. Jeff is the unlucky one, and his arm is amputated. Moments later, they are rescued, but they agree to lie about the incident, claiming it was an accident. Fast forward 5 years, and the consequences of that desperate choice come back to haunt them. The friends start receiving mysterious threats, and one by one, they face chilling attacks. Jeff, now disfigured and filled with rage, emerges as a force of vengeance, determined to make the others pay for their betrayal. The cast, including Deborah Wally as Teddy Rogers, Paul Carr as Sergeant, Mark Richards, and David G. Cannon as Jeff, bring the tension to life, particularly as the story weaves between past trauma and present-day horror. Each character's guilt and fear are palpable, heightening the suspense and making their survival feel increasingly uncertain. While the film operates on a low budget, it uses its limitations to create a tense, unsettling atmosphere. The amputation scene is shocking without being overly graphic, and the score keeps the tension tight, enhancing the suspense of Jeff's calculated revenge. The story isn't just about physical horror, it's about the psychological cost of choices made in desperation and the long shadows they cast. The Severed Arm may not be the most polished slasher of its era, but its originality and moral complexity give it a lasting impact. It's a film that lingers in your mind, forcing viewers to consider how far they might go to survive and the potential consequences of betrayal. For fans of psychological horror intertwined with slasher thrills, this is a haunting and thought-provoking watch. Dead End Drive-In, 1986. A night at the movies is supposed to be simple. Buy a ticket, watch a film, and head home. But in Dead End Drive-In, Brian Trenchard Smith takes that familiar setting and flips it into something nightmarish. Jimmy and his girlfriend Carmen head to their local drive-in, expecting just another evening out. Instead, their car breaks down, and they discover the place isn't really a theater at all. It's a cleverly disguised detention camp. The government has turned the drive-in into a holding pen for anyone they consider disposable. Restless teens, outcasts, people who don't fit neatly into society's system. Once you're in, there's no getting out. The gates are locked, and the distractions are endless. Fast food, pounding music, constant movie reels, all designed to keep the inmates docile. Most of the trapped youth give in, content to waste away in this neon-colored purgatory. Jimmy, though, refuses to accept it. Where others see comfort, he sees control, and his fight to escape becomes a rebellion against more than just fences and guards. It's a rebellion against complacency itself. The film thrives on its punk-inspired visuals and gritty atmosphere. Rusted cars, spray-painted walls, and synth-driven chaos create a world that feels both absurd and disturbingly believable. At its heart, Dead End Drive-In is as much satire as action. It digs into consumerism, class division, and the way entertainment can be used to pacify rather than inspire. Over the years, it's earned cult status for exactly that mix of style and commentary. Beneath the explosions and car chases, there's a sharp edge, a warning about how easily people can be lulled into submission when comfort is offered as a substitute for freedom. Strange, stylish, and defiantly 80s, Dead End Drive-In is more than a dystopian thriller. It's a reminder that sometimes the biggest prison doesn't need bars, just distractions. Dark Waters, 1993. On a remote island cloaked in fog and secrecy, Dark Waters unfolds like a gothic nightmare. Directed by Mariano Bino, the film follows Elizabeth, a young woman drawn to a convent after the death of her father. What seems like a place of refuge quickly reveals itself as something far more sinister. The nuns guard strange rituals, subterranean chambers, and a lurking presence that feels older than the convent itself. The movie is soaked in atmosphere. Candlelit corridors, crashing waves, and eerie chants create an overwhelming sense of dread. Instead of relying on jump scares, Bano leans into mood and suggestion, making the viewer feel constantly on edge, as though danger is always just beyond the frame. Elizabeth's journey becomes less about faith and more about survival, as she uncovers the convent's terrifying connection to an ancient evil. The closer she gets to the truth, the more surreal and dreamlike the film becomes, blurring the line between vision and reality. Dark Waters has been praised for its haunting imagery and Lovecraftian undertones, capturing that feeling of something vast, unknowable, and malignant pressing in on human lives. It's a film that crawls under your skin, not because of what it shows, but because of what it suggests. And once you've seen it, it's hard to shake the feeling that the island's secrets are still waiting, just beneath the surface. Dark Age, 1987. The Australian outback is a place of extremes. Blazing heat, endless plains, winding rivers, and a wilderness that's as beautiful as it is unforgiving. It's here that Arch Nicholson's 1987 film Dark Age unfolds, blending suspense, creature thrills, and cultural tension into something more than just another killer crocodile movie. At the center is Steve Harris, a park ranger and herpetologist played by John Jarrett. His assignment seems straightforward: track down and stop a giant saltwater crocodile named Numenwari, blamed for a string of attacks. But this isn't just an ordinary predator. To the local Aboriginal community, Numenwari is sacred, a living vessel for ancestral spirits. For Harris, the mission quickly shifts from a matter of public safety into a moral crossroads. Does he protect people by killing the crocodile, or honor the traditions that demand its survival? That conflict deepens with the arrival of poachers like John Besser, who view Numunwari only as a payday. Harris is pulled between competing forces: opportunists seeking profit, communities fighting for respect, and the primal reality of nature itself. All the while, the crocodile remains an imposing and unpredictable presence, less a monster than a reminder of humanity's fragility in the wild. What makes Dark Age stand out is its atmosphere. The Australian outback isn't just a backdrop, it's a character in itself, shaping every moment with isolation and tension. Nicholson lingers on quiet stretches of land and water, ratcheting up suspense before releasing it in bursts of sudden violence. The crocodile effects are effective, but it's the pacing and mood that keep the danger looming. Beyond the thrills, the film weaves in themes of cultural respect, environmental responsibility, and the uneasy balance between progress and tradition. It may not have been a mainstream hit, but over time, Dark Age has earned a reputation as one of the more thoughtful entries in the creature feature genre. By the end, it's not just a story of man against beast. It's a reflection on how we choose to live alongside nature, and the cost when that balance is broken. Bloodstone Subspecies 2, 1993. Bloodstone Subspecies 2, directed by Ted Nicolaou, continues the dark vampire saga started in the original Subspecies film. Released in 1993, this sequel follows the terrifying vampire Radu Vladislas, played by Anders Hove, as he grows more powerful and increasingly malevolent. The story picks up after Radu's brutal attack on a group of friends in Romania. Michelle, portrayed by Melanie Shatner, is one of the few survivors, and she remains haunted by the horrors she witnessed. As Radu seeks to reclaim a mystical bloodstone that amplifies his powers and strengthens his control over others, Michelle and her allies must confront not only him, but the supernatural dangers that come with such dark magic. What makes this film stand out is its atmosphere. Nicolaou leans into the Gothic Romanian setting, using shadowy castles, fog-filled forests, and eerie candlelit interiors to create a tense and immersive environment. The practical effects, especially Radu's monstrous transformations and the Bloodstone's mystical energy, highlight the series' commitment to inventive, hands-on horror. The film also explores themes of power, seduction, and survival. Radu is not just a monster. He embodies the tragic, almost hypnotic allure of vampirism, making him both fascinating and terrifying. Michelle's struggle against him provides an emotional core, giving viewers someone to root for amid the dark, supernatural chaos. While it received mixed reviews upon release, Bloodstone Subspecies 2 has earned a cult following for its campy charm, atmospheric storytelling, and commitment to the vampire mythos. Anders Hove's performance as Radu, intense and unrelenting, remains a highlight of the film. By the end, the film delivers a blend of horror, dark fantasy, and gothic romance, immersing viewers in a shadowy world where the line between life and death is blurred, and death, human and monster, is chillingly blurred. Hellgate is a horror film released in 1989, directed by William A. Levy. The story revolves around a brutal motorcycle gang that kidnaps and murders a young woman named Josie, setting off a chain of supernatural events. Years later, her father discovers a magical crystal that can resurrect the dead and decides to bring Josie back to life. Once reanimated, Josie lures unsuspecting visitors to the ghost town of Hellgate, where her father exacts revenge on those who wronged them. The film blends elements of slasher horror with supernatural themes, creating a unique but often chaotic narrative. Starring Ron Palillo as Matt and Abigail Wolcott as Josie, the film features a mix of camp and horror, with performances that have garnered mixed reviews. Critics have noted the film's poor acting, cheesy script, and low production values, which contribute to its status as a cult classic among fans of bad horror movies. With a runtime of 91 minutes, Hellgate has an IMDb rating of 3.7, reflecting its polarizing reception. While the film is often criticized for its execution, it features moments of unintentional humor and bizarre special effects, including a resurrected turtle and other creatures that add to its charm for fans of the genre. Hellgate is remembered for its quirky premise, and the combination of horror and dark comedy, appealing to viewers who enjoy low-budget films that embrace their flaws. Its legacy continues as a staple in discussions about so bad it's good cinema, making it a memorable entry in the annals of 80s horror. Blood Freak, 1972. Few films are as bizarre or as delightfully absurd as Blood Freak, directed by Brad Grinter in 1972. It tells the story of Herschel, a Vietnam vet struggling with addiction, who eats a chemically altered turkey and transforms into a turkey-headed murderous monster. The premise is outrageous. The effects are low budget and shocking, and the result is a movie that is as funny as it is horrifying. The horror is visceral, but it's the sheer oddity that makes Blood Freak so memorable. Scenes of Herschel rampaging through the countryside, his grotesque transformation, and the chaotic practical effects make it a spectacle of pure VHS-era weirdness. The film also carries a moralistic undertone, warning against drugs and addiction in a way that feels both earnest and completely absurd. Blood Freak is a perfect example of a cult treasure, strange, grotesque, and entirely unclassifiable. It's a movie that challenges expectations at every turn, mixing dark humor, gore, and social commentary into an experience that's impossible to forget. Watching it today is like discovering a lost tape in a rental store back in the 70s, unpolished, shocking, and endlessly entertaining. Tenement, 1985. Tenement is a high-energy, chaotic thriller that captures the fear and desperation of urban life in the 1980s. The story follows a group of tenants trapped in their apartment building when a gang of criminals begins terrorizing them. Ordinary people are forced to confront extreme violence in order to survive. Each character reacts differently, creating tension and unpredictability throughout the film. Some rise to the challenge, some struggle with fear, and some are pushed past the point of no return. Lawrence Tierney and Trisha Noble deliver strong performances that anchor the film, giving it weight beyond the violence. The setting is claustrophobic, making every encounter feel tense and dangerous. Hallways and stairwells become battlefields, and the sense of isolation amplifies the suspense. Tenement is unapologetically raw and intense. It is a quintessential 1980s exploitation thriller, mixing action, suspense, and social commentary about urban decay and violence. The pacing is relentless, making it impossible to look away. For anyone who appreciates high-stakes thrillers with gritty realism, Tenement delivers a wild and unforgettable ride. Vice Squad, 1982. Vice Squad, directed by Gary Sherman, is a gritty crime thriller that exposes the dark and dangerous underbelly of Los Angeles in the early 1980s. The story follows Princess, a streetwise prostitute played by Season Hubley, who becomes entangled in a dangerous situation after witnessing a violent crime committed by the psychopathic pimp Ramrod, portrayed with chilling intensity by Wings Hauser. When the police enlist her to help take him down, Princess is forced to navigate a treacherous world of crime, betrayal, and personal danger. Vice Squad thrives on tension and atmosphere. The city feels alive with danger at every turn, and the characters are constantly on edge. Hauser's performance as Ramrod is menacing and unforgettable, leaving viewers with a sense of unease that lasts throughout the film. The theme song Neon Slime, performed by Hauser, adds a darkly humorous and memorable layer to the story. Beyond the action and suspense, the film explores survival, morality, and the challenges of making the right choice in a world where danger is constant. Each character is pushed to their limits, and the audience is invited to consider the consequences of violence and crime in society. Vice Squad balances thrilling action with social commentary, creating a tense, compelling, and unforgettable experience. It is a hard-hitting, stylish thriller that remains a significant entry in early 1980s crime cinema. Body Parts is a chilling horror film directed by Eric Red. The story revolves around Bill Trushank, portrayed by Jeff Fahey, a criminal psychologist who faces a life-changing event after a car accident. In a horrific twist of fate, he loses his arm in the crash. Following the accident, Bill undergoes an experimental surgery where his lost arm is replaced with a limb that belonged to a notorious serial killer. This unsettling premise sets the stage for a psychological thriller that delves into themes of identity and morality. As Bill adapts to his new life, he begins experiencing disturbing hallucinations and violent urges. The film raises haunting questions about the nature of the human mind and the consequences of medical experimentation. Is the arm truly just a body part, or does it carry the essence of its former owner? The film features a strong supporting cast, including Lindsay Duncan as Dr. Agatha Webb and Kim Delaney as Karen Cruikshank, Bill's wife. Their performances add depth to the narrative, showcasing the emotional turmoil that arises from Bill's transformation. With a runtime of 1 hour and 28 minutes, Body Parts combines elements of body horror and slasher genres, delivering a mix of suspense and gore. The cinematography captures the unsettling tone, enhancing the viewer's experience as Bill's sanity unravels. Despite its intriguing premise, the film has received mixed reviews, holding an IMDb rating of 5.7 out of 10. Some viewers appreciate its ambitious ideas and the moral dilemmas it presents, while others criticize its execution and pacing. Notably, the movie features impressive stunt work and creative sequences, particularly during the climax where Bill confronts the consequences of his surgery. The film's blend of horror and dark humor keeps audiences engaged, even as it spirals into absurdity. In conclusion, Body Parts offers a unique take on the horror genre, exploring what happens when science and morality collide. The film invites viewers to ponder the implications of identity and the dark side of human nature. Witchboard 2, The Devil's Doorway, 1993. Witchboard 2, The Devil's Doorway continues the story of supernatural terror introduced in the original film, this time focusing on a young woman named Paige, played by Ami Dolenz. After the tragic death of her boyfriend, Paige moves into an old apartment, hoping for a fresh start. But instead of peace, she finds a mysterious Ouija board left behind by a previous tenant. Curiosity quickly turns to danger as Paige begins using the board to communicate with the dead. At first, the contact seems harmless, but it soon becomes clear that she has opened a doorway to powerful and malevolent forces. Strange visions, unsettling phenomena, and encounters with vengeful spirits draw her deeper into a dark, supernatural web she doesn't fully understand. The film blends classic haunted house and possession tropes with psychological tension, creating a slow-burning sense of dread. Paige's emotional journey, her grief over losing her boyfriend, and her growing fear make the stakes personal. The audience feels her isolation and escalating terror, which gives the story more depth than a typical ghost story. Director Kevin S. Tenney uses practical effects, eerie lighting, and a moody soundtrack to heighten the atmosphere. Shadows seem to move on their own. Objects appear mysteriously, and the sense of an unseen presence lurking just beyond the frame keeps viewers on edge. While not widely acclaimed at the time of release, the film has found a dedicated following among fans of supernatural horror. Its focus on character and the psychological consequences of tampering with forces beyond human understanding sets it apart from many other sequels of the era. By the conclusion, Paige's battle with the board reaches a tense climax, emphasizing the film's central warning. Curiosity can have dangerous consequences when dealing with the spirit world. Witchboard 2 delivers an eerie, suspenseful ride that's both a chilling sequel and a cautionary tale about the unseen dangers that lie just beyond our perception. Basket Case 2, 1990. Basket Case 2, directed by Frank Henenlotter, continues the bizarre and grotesque story of Dwayne Bradley and his deformed, formerly conjoined twin, Belial. Released in 1990, this sequel picks up shortly after the events of the original Basket Case and expands the story into a twisted, dark comedy-horror hybrid. Dwayne and Belial find themselves in a dilapidated asylum, where they attempt to live a quiet life among other misfit patients. Belial, of course, is still rambunctious, causing chaos with his grotesque, mischievous antics. As the asylum's staff and other residents start to notice the unusual duo, tensions rise, leading to moments of both horrifying violence and absurd humor. What makes Basket Case 2 stand out is Henenlotter's signature mix of practical effects, body horror, and offbeat comedy. Belial is as expressive as ever, brought to life with inventive puppetry and makeup that give him a uniquely disturbing personality. The film takes the grotesque elements of the original and amplifies them, while introducing new, bizarre characters in the asylum who each bring their own strange flair to the story. The film also explores themes of acceptance and family, albeit in a twisted way. Dwayne's loyalty to Belial and their bond drives much of the narrative, providing a surprising emotional depth beneath the shock and gore. The humor is dark and often self-aware, making the over-the-top violence feel part of the film's quirky world rather than gratuitous. While it may not have achieved mainstream recognition, Basket Case 2 has become a cult favorite, celebrated for its creativity, practical effects, and unapologetically weird tone. Fans of the original will appreciate how it expands the story while keeping the grotesque charm and irreverent humor alive. By the end, you're left with a mix of horror and dark comedy, a strange but memorable continuation of Dwayne and Belial's macabre adventures. The Brother from Another Planet, 1984. The Brother from Another Planet is a unique sci-fi comedy directed by John Sayles, released in 1984. The film tells the story of a mute alien, portrayed by Joe Morton, who crash lands in Harlem, New York City. His appearance resembles that of a black human, leading to various interactions that explore themes of identity, race, and assimilation. The alien, referred to simply as the Brother, navigates the complexities of urban life while being pursued by two outer space bounty hunters. As he settles into the community, he befriends a diverse group of characters, including bar patrons and a single mother, who help him adapt to his new surroundings. Through his experiences, the film humorously and poignantly addresses issues like prejudice and the immigrant experience. Sayles' script is rich in social commentary, blending satire with heartfelt moments. The brothers' silent observations of human behavior highlight the absurdities of societal norms, making the audience reflect on their own prejudices and assumptions. His journey from confusion to connection is both touching and thought-provoking. The film's humor is subtle, yet impactful, with clever dialogue and memorable interactions. The cinematography captures the vibrancy of Harlem, while the score enhances the film's emotional depth. Joe Morton's performance is especially noteworthy, as he conveys a range of emotions without uttering a single word. Running for 108 minutes, The Brother from Another Planet offers a compelling mix of comedy and social critique. Although it was a modest success at the box office, it has since gained a cult following for its originality and insightful commentary on race and identity. As you watch The Brother from Another Planet, you'll find yourself engaged in a story that not only entertains but also challenges you to reconsider your perceptions of others. It's a film that resonates with audiences, reminding us of our shared humanity in a world often divided by differences. Time Bandits, 1981. Time Bandits is a whimsical fantasy sci-fi film directed by Terry Gilliam, released in 1981. This imaginative adventure follows an 11-year-old boy named Kevin, played by Craig Warnock, who dreams of escaping his mundane life. His wish comes true when he stumbles upon a group of time-traveling dwarves who are on a quest to steal treasures from various historical figures. The film begins with Kevin discovering the dwarves, who have escaped from the Supreme Being portrayed by Ralph Richardson. They take him on a wild journey through time and space, encountering famous characters such as Napoleon, played by Ian Holm, and Robin Hood, portrayed by John Cleese. Each destination is filled with humor, creativity, and surreal visuals, showcasing Gilliam's signature style. As the group travels through different eras, they face challenges and adversaries, including the menacing evil genius, played by David Warner. The film cleverly explores themes of greed, morality, and the absurdities of history, all while maintaining a lighthearted tone. The dwarves' antics and Kevin's innocent perspective provide a delightful contrast to the darker elements of the story. The production design is visually stunning, featuring imaginative sets and costumes that bring the fantastical world to life. The blend of practical effects and creative storytelling creates a unique viewing experience that resonates with audiences of all ages. With a runtime of 110 minutes, Time Bandits is both entertaining and thought-provoking. It encourages viewers to reflect on the nature of time, adventure, and the consequences of one's choices. The film invites audiences to embrace their imagination and consider the possibilities that lie beyond the ordinary. As you watch Time Bandits, prepare for a journey that is as humorous as it is profound, filled with memorable characters and a story that will leave you contemplating the true meaning of adventure. Extro, 1982. Extro is a cult classic from 1982 that blends horror and science fiction in a uniquely unsettling way. The film opens with a mysterious alien abduction, where Sam, a father, is taken from his family. Cut to 3 years later, and his son Tony is still grappling with his father's absence. When Sam suddenly returns, he's not quite the same man. There's an otherworldly quality about him that hints at the horrors he's experienced. As he re-enters their lives, strange and terrifying events begin to unfold. Sam's behavior becomes increasingly erratic, and he displays bizarre powers that unsettle those around him. The film takes a dark turn as Sam's return becomes a catalyst for chaos. He brings with him an alien presence that disrupts the family dynamic and leads to horrifying consequences. The tension builds as we witness Sam's transformation and the impact it has on Tony and his mother, who struggles to understand what has happened to her husband. Extro is known for its surreal visuals and shocking practical effects, which contribute to its unsettling atmosphere. The film explores themes of identity, loss, and the uncanny as it blurs the lines between human and alien. The unsettling imagery, including scenes of body horror and bizarre transformations, creates a lasting impact that lingers long after the credits roll. With a runtime of just 85 minutes, Extro packs a punch with its bizarre narrative and unexpected twists. It's a wild ride that challenges viewers to confront their fears and question the nature of humanity. This film is a hidden gem for fans of offbeat horror looking for something truly unique, and it stands out in the genre for its audacious storytelling and imaginative concepts. Whether you're revisiting it or discovering it for the first time, Extro promises a thrilling experience that will keep you on the edge of your seat. Trancers, 1984. Trancers is a sci-fi action film directed by Charles Band, released in 1984. The film combines elements of time travel, noir, and horror, creating a unique narrative that has garnered a cult following. Set in a dystopian future, the story follows Jack Death, played by Tim Thomerson, a hard-boiled cop tasked with eliminating a new breed of criminals known as Trancers. The film begins with Jack Death being sent back in time to the year 1985 to stop the nefarious plan of a sinister criminal named Whistler, portrayed by Michael Stefani. Whistler has the ability to turn people into zombie-like creatures called Trancers, who do his bidding. To combat this threat, Jack must inhabit the body of his ancestor, allowing him to blend into the past while pursuing his target. As Jack navigates the challenges of the 1980s, he encounters a vibrant cast of characters, including a tough-as-nails bartender named Lena, played by Helen Hunt. Their chemistry adds depth to the story as they work together to thwart Whistler's plans. The film effectively mixes action, humor, and science fiction, creating an engaging experience for viewers. The production design reflects the gritty aesthetics of both the future and the past, while the special effects, typical of low-budget films of the era, contribute to its charm. With a runtime of 78 minutes, Trancers packs a lot of excitement into its brief duration, offering a fast-paced narrative that keeps audiences entertained. Trancers explores themes of identity, morality, and the consequences of one's actions across time. Jack Death embodies the classic noir hero, tough, cynical, yet ultimately driven by a sense of justice. As you watch Trancers, expect a wild ride filled with action, humor, and a bit of existential pondering, all set against the backdrop of a uniquely crafted sci-fi world. The Devil's Reign, 1975. The Devil's Rain, directed by Robert Fuest in 1975, is a bold, visually intense horror film that blends supernatural terror with striking, almost hallucinatory imagery. The story follows a family targeted by a satanic cult, leading to a series of grotesque events, melting faces, and ritualistic terror. The film stars Ernest Borgnine and Tom Skerritt, with a hypnotic score by John Travolta's father, adding to the dreamlike, unsettling atmosphere. What makes the film so memorable is its unapologetic visual flair. The cult's ceremonies, the supernatural manifestations, and the intense, fiery color palette all create a world where reality feels warped and threatening. Characters are constantly confronted by forces beyond understanding, and the line between human and supernatural terror blurs with every scene. The Devil's Reign thrives on both spectacle and dread. The melting faces, ritualistic imagery, and psychological torment of the characters amplify tension, making the horror feel simultaneously theatrical and visceral. Themes of sin, temptation, and struggle against overwhelming evil are woven into the narrative, giving the film a sense of mythic stakes alongside its outrageous visuals. As a VHS-era horror oddity, The Devil's Reign exemplifies the type of bold, experimental filmmaking that appealed to cult audiences. It's a fever dream of horror, a film that's simultaneously disturbing, mesmerizing, and impossible to forget. Watching it today, it's clear why these tapes earned a devoted following: strange, audacious, and entirely unforgettable. The Annihilators, 1985. The Annihilators is a fast-paced, action-packed vigilante film that captures the energy and style of 1980s action cinema. The story follows a group of veterans who are frustrated with rising crime and corruption in their city. They decide to take matters into their own hands and become a force the criminal underworld cannot ignore. Confronting increasingly dangerous criminals, they rely on teamwork, skill, and determination to restore a sense of justice to their streets. Robert Ginty and Steve James bring energy and intensity to their roles, making the action sequences feel immediate and high stakes. The film combines over-the-top violence with tight pacing and a sense of urgency that never lets up. Each encounter increases the tension and builds toward climactic confrontations. Beyond the action, The Annihilators examines themes of justice, morality, and the lengths ordinary people will go to when they feel powerless. It is a classic example of 1980s vigilante cinema, blending explosive action with social commentary. For fans of intense urban thrillers, The Annihilators is a relentless and exciting experience. The Exterminator, 1980. The Exterminator is a gritty and intense vigilante thriller that blends action, urban realism, and a dark exploration of trauma and justice. The story centers on John Eastland, a Vietnam veteran and carpenter who becomes a vigilante after his best friend is brutally attacked by criminals. When the authorities fail to hold the perpetrators accountable, Eastland decides to take matters into his own hands. Armed with his carpentry skills and a deep sense of moral outrage, he hunts down the men responsible, leaving a trail of retribution in his wake. Robert Ginty's performance as Eastland is raw and committed. He brings depth and believability to a character who is angry, wounded, and driven by a personal code of justice. The film's urban setting feels tense and threatening, with every street corner and alleyway presenting potential danger. The violence is unflinching, making the stakes feel real and immediate. The film also explores broader themes. It raises questions about morality, justice, and the consequences of taking the law into one's own hands. Eastland is not portrayed as a hero in a traditional sense. He is a man trying to restore balance in a chaotic world, and his actions have both emotional and ethical weight. The Exterminator combines gripping action, compelling character development, and social commentary, resulting in a film that is both entertaining and thought-provoking. For fans of revenge-driven urban thrillers with a dark edge, this film remains a memorable and intense experience. Cemetery Man, 1994. Cemetery Man, also known by its original title Delamore to Delamore, is one of the strangest and most stylish horror films of the 90s. Directed by Michel Soavi in 1994, it blends gothic atmosphere, surreal humor, and bursts of graphic horror into something that feels equal parts art film and midnight movie. Rupert Everett stars as Francesco della Morte, the caretaker of a cemetery where the dead don't stay buried. Within 7 days, they rise again, and it's his job to put them back down, usually with a gunshot or a shovel to the head. His only companion is Nagi, a simple-minded assistant who says little but proves unexpectedly loyal. At first, it plays like a quirky zombie tale, but the film quickly becomes more surreal. Delamort falls in love with a mysterious widow who seems to die and return in different guises, each time reshaping his obsession. The boundaries between life and death blur, dreams and reality overlap, and the story drifts into territory that feels mythic, poetic, and deeply unsettling. The film is visually stunning, drenched in gothic imagery. Fog-draped graveyards, candlelit chambers, and decaying corpses that are equal parts grotesque and beautiful. Soavi uses these elements not just for scares, but to build a meditation on love, mortality, and the absurdity of existence. Cemetery Man is often described as one of the last great Italian horror films, carrying forward the legacy of directors like Dario Argento and Lucio Fulci while carving out its own unique identity. It's darkly funny, grotesque, and oddly romantic, leaving viewers unsure whether they've just watched a zombie film, a love story, or a surreal existential nightmare. More than a cult classic, it's a reminder of how wild and unpredictable the VHS era could get, where even a movie about re-killing the dead could transform into something haunting, absurd, and unforgettable. The Love Butcher, 1975. The Love Butcher, directed by Michael Angel in 1975, is a lurid and gritty slasher that perfectly captures the exploitation horror energy of the 70s. The film follows Edward Stark, a seemingly ordinary man struggling with violent urges that he hides behind a facade of normalcy. As women in the community begin turning up dead, the tension mounts, revealing the dark, obsessive undercurrent lurking beneath the surface of suburban life. Edward is both terrifying and strangely sympathetic, a man battling his own compulsions while manipulating those around him. The film's horror comes as much from his human darkness as it does from the murders themselves. Cinematography emphasizes tight, claustrophobic spaces, creating a sense of unease and keeping viewers constantly on edge. Even small interactions feel fraught with danger, building toward shocking acts of violence that land hard and unexpected. The Love Butcher isn't just a slasher. It's a character study of obsession, control, and moral decay. Despite its low budget, the film's pacing, suspense, and performances make it a compelling watch. It's a quintessential VHS-era horror experience, dark, provocative, and unforgettable. Watching it today feels like rediscovering a hidden corner of horror history, a film designed to shock and linger long after the credits roll. Halloween 3, Season of the Witch, 1982. Season of the Witch takes the Halloween franchise in an unexpected direction, stepping away from Michael Myers to deliver a chilling, inventive horror story all its own. Directed by Tommy Lee Wallace and released in 1982, the film centers on a sinister plot that turns the beloved holiday into a night of terror. The story follows Dan Chalice, played by Tom Atkins, a man pulled into a web of mystery and murder after a string of bizarre deaths appear linked to a Halloween mask company called Silver Shamrock. The company's owner, Connell Cochran, played by Dan O'Herlihy, is an enigmatic figure whose charm hides a terrifying agenda. The masks, marketed to children, are far more than playful holiday merchandise. They are part of a deadly scheme involving ancient druidic magic and modern technology. Chalice teams up with Ellie Grimbridge, portrayed by Stacey Nelkin, whose father has fallen victim to Cochran's plan. Together, they uncover a horrifying truth. On Halloween night, these seemingly innocent masks are designed to turn children into instruments of death. The film's tension builds steadily, as every discovery adds to the sense that time is running out and the stakes could not be higher. What makes Halloween 3 so memorable is its atmosphere. Wallace masterfully blends horror with elements of science fiction and surreal imagery, creating a world that feels familiar yet eerily off-kilter. The score, crafted by John Carpenter and Alan Howarth, is iconic in its own right, perfectly enhancing the sense of dread and the looming threat of the mask company's plan. Although the absence of Michael Myers initially confused some fans, the film has since earned a devoted cult following. Its originality, dark humor, and social commentary, particularly its critique of consumerism and blind holiday traditions, set it apart from other entries in the series. Scenes of creeping dread, combined with moments of shock, leave a lasting impression that lingers long after the credits roll. By the end, Halloween 3, Season of the Witch delivers a uniquely unsettling experience. It's a film that rewards viewers who embrace its strangeness, offering inventive storytelling, suspenseful horror, and a lingering sense of unease. For fans of the franchise and horror enthusiasts alike, it remains a bold, distinctive, and unforgettable entry. The Changeling is a chilling supernatural thriller released in 1980, directed by Peter Medak. The story centers around John Russell, portrayed by George C. Scott. After the tragic loss of his wife and daughter, John seeks solace in a secluded mansion, hoping to escape his grief. But what he finds instead is a different kind of torment. As John settles in, he begins to experience unsettling phenomena: strange noises, ghostly apparitions, and an overwhelming sense of dread. The atmosphere is thick with tension, drawing the viewer deeper into the mystery. Determined to understand what's happening, John investigates the mansion's dark past. He uncovers a tragic story involving a tormented child, leading to a harrowing confrontation with the supernatural. Joining John on his journey is Claire Norman, played by Trish Van Devere. Together, they delve into the mansion's secrets, unraveling a haunting tale that intertwines love, loss, and vengeance. The film also features Melvyn Douglas as Professor Bennington, who assists John in piecing together the chilling history of the mansion. Douglas's performance adds depth to the narrative, enhancing the emotional stakes. The Changeling is renowned for its atmospheric tension and masterful storytelling. It creates a palpable sense of fear without relying on excessive gore or jump scares, making it a standout in the horror genre. Though not as widely recognized as other horror classics, The Changeling has earned a dedicated cult following. It received nominations for several awards, including a Saturn Award for Best Actor for George C. Scott. With its eerie atmosphere and emotional depth, The Changeling remains a powerful exploration of grief and the supernatural. If you haven't seen it yet, prepare for a haunting experience that lingers long after the credits roll. Body Melt, 1993. On Pebbles Court, a quiet cul-de-sac in Melbourne, life looks perfectly ordinary. The lawns are trimmed, the neighbors are friendly, and everyone seems to glow with good health. But all that clean living hides something far darker beneath the surface. Body Melt, directed by Philip Brophy in 1993, takes suburban normalcy and tears it apart through a nightmare vision of wellness culture pushed to the extreme. At the center of it all is Vimuville, a local health retreat promoting a brand new miracle supplement. Marketed as the ultimate boost for strength, beauty, and longevity, it quickly reveals itself as something much more disturbing. The first victims show just how wrong things can go. Cheryl Rand, a pregnant woman, undergoes horrifying changes as her body mutates in grotesque and unpredictable ways. From there, the nightmare spreads through the neighborhood. Each household on Pebbles Court experiences its own gruesome downfall. Explosive deaths, warped transformations, and moments so outrageous they drift into pitch-black comedy. What makes the film stand out is its relentless practical effects. Bob Karen's makeup and creature work are shocking, graphic, and often so over-the-top they feel surreal. One moment you're wincing, the next you're laughing nervously at the sheer absurdity of it all. But Body Melt isn't just splatter for the sake of splatter. Underneath the gore is a sharp satire about society's obsession with health fads and miracle cures. It skewers the blind trust we place in products promising eternal youth or impossible fitness, showing just how dangerous that chase for perfection can become. Over time, this blend of satire, comedy, and unflinching body horror has earned the movie a strong cult following. It's the kind of film that shocks, disgusts, and amuses in equal measure, leaving you unsettled long after it ends. Body Melt doesn't just gross you out, it forces you to think about the cost of obsession, and it does it with a wicked grin. The Nesting is a horror mystery film released in 1981, directed by Armand Weston. The story centers on Lauren Cochran, a writer suffering from agoraphobia, played by Robin Groves. In search of peace and inspiration for her latest book, she rents a secluded Victorian house, unaware of its dark history as a former brothel haunted by the ghosts of murdered prostitutes. As Lauren begins to settle in, she experiences eerie occurrences and strange visions, all tied to the tragic past of the house. The film delves into themes of fear, isolation, and the supernatural, as Lauren grapples with her own psychological struggles, while confronting the vengeful spirits that inhabit her new home. The supporting cast features notable actors like John Carradine as Colonel LeBrun, who provides a mix of humor and exposition, and Gloria Graham in her final role as a ghostly madam. Their performances add depth to the narrative, enriching the atmosphere of suspense and intrigue. While the film starts strong with an engaging premise and some genuinely creepy moments, it has received mixed reviews. It currently holds an IMDb rating of 4.9, reflecting its status as a lesser-known entry in the horror genre. Critics have pointed out that the pacing slows in the second half, and the narrative can feel formulaic at times, but it still offers a few memorable set pieces and atmospheric visuals. The Nesting is visually intriguing, utilizing its haunting setting to create a sense of dread. The film effectively combines elements of gothic horror with psychological tension, making it an interesting watch for fans of supernatural thrillers. With its unique blend of horror and character-driven storytelling, The Nesting remains a notable entry in early 80s horror cinema, appealing to those who enjoy haunted house tales and psychological drama. Enemy Mine, 1985. Enemy Mine is a thought-provoking sci-fi film directed by Wolfgang Petersen, released in 1985. Set in a distant future, the story follows fighter pilot Willis Davidge, played by Dennis Quaid, who is engaged in a brutal war against an alien race known as the Dracs, represented by Louis Gossett Jr. as the Drac named Jerry. The film begins with Davidge crashing on a remote hostile planet after a dogfight with Jerry. Initially, the two enemies are filled with hatred and mistrust. However, they soon realize that their survival depends on their ability to work together. This unlikely alliance transforms into a deep friendship as they face various challenges, including the harsh environment and threats from other hostile forces. At its core, Enemy Mine explores themes of forgiveness, understanding, and the futility of prejudice. As Davidge and Jerry confront their biases, the film serves as a powerful metaphor for overcoming hatred and embracing diversity. Their journey highlights the importance of empathy and cooperation, making it resonate on multiple levels. The film's production design, created by Rolf Zehetbauer, effectively transports viewers to an alien world, while Maurice Jarre's score adds emotional depth to the narrative. The performances by Quaid and Gossett are stellar, showcasing their chemistry and ability to convey complex emotions through their evolving relationship. Despite facing challenges at the box office, Enemy Mine has gained a cult following and is often regarded as an underrated classic in the sci-fi genre. With a runtime of 108 minutes, it combines action, drama, and humor, offering both thrilling sequences and heartfelt moments. As you watch Enemy Mine, you'll be drawn into a story that challenges you to reflect on your own perceptions and biases, ultimately reminding us that understanding and friendship can emerge from even the most unlikely circumstances. The Reflecting Skin is a haunting film directed and written by Philip Ridley. Set in the 1950s, it immerses viewers in the life of a young boy living in rural America. The story unfolds as he grapples with his troubled family dynamics and a vivid imagination. As the plot develops, the boy becomes convinced that a neighboring widow is a vampire, responsible for a series of mysterious disappearances in the area. This central theme of childhood innocence, juxtaposed with the darker aspects of human nature, creates a tense atmosphere throughout the film. The cinematography is striking, showcasing the beautiful yet eerie landscapes of rural America. The visual storytelling complements the film's exploration of fear, fantasy, and the complexities of growing up. The boy's perspective invites the audience to question the nature of the monsters he perceives. Are they truly supernatural, or are they reflections of the real horrors present in his environment? The film's unique blend of genres, folk horror, drama, and thriller, sets it apart from traditional horror narratives. The slow pacing allows viewers to absorb the haunting imagery and unsettling themes. As the boy navigates his world, he encounters a series of bizarre and macabre characters, each contributing to his distorted view of reality. Viggo Mortensen delivers a compelling performance as Cameron Dove, alongside Lindsay Duncan as Dolphin Blue. Their portrayals add depth to the story, making the viewer empathize with the boy's confusion and fear. The film challenges perceptions of childhood, suggesting that the true monsters may be those who inflict pain and suffering on the vulnerable. Despite its artistic ambition, The Reflecting Skin is not without controversy. Some viewers find its ambiguous narrative frustrating, as it leaves many questions unanswered. However, this ambiguity invites deeper reflection on the nature of horror and the complexities of human relationships. With an IMDb rating of 6.7 out of 10, the film has garnered a cult following since its release. It won 6 awards and received 3 nominations, solidifying its place in the realm of thought-provoking cinema. As the film reaches its unsettling finale, the boy confronts not only the widow, but also the haunting truths about his own family. In a surreal final scene, he stands in a field, the sun setting behind him, as the boundaries between reality and imagination blur. The screen fades to black, leaving viewers with a lingering sense of dread and the haunting question, what truly defines a monster? This open-ended conclusion invites reflection on the nature of fear and the shadows that dwell within us all. Alucarda, 1977. Alucarda, directed by Juan Lopez Moctezuma in 1977, is one of the most hallucinatory and intense entries in VHS-era horror. The story takes place in a remote convent, where 2 young women, Alucarda and Justine, forge a bond that quickly spirals into dark obsession. Their curiosity and defiance awaken a malevolent supernatural force that infects the convent with chaos, blood, and ritualistic terror. The film thrives on its surreal, operatic visuals. Every frame is saturated with color and shadow, from blood-soaked ceremonies to candlelit corridors that twist and bend in ways that feel almost dreamlike. Alucarda herself is a force of nature, beautiful, chaotic, and terrifying. Her presence transforms the convent into a place where the lines between innocence and evil, love and destruction, are blurred beyond recognition. What sets Alucarda apart is how it combines traditional horror with transgressive themes. It explores repression, religious fanaticism, and forbidden desire, creating tension that is both psychological and visceral. The convent becomes a prison, and the girl's growing connection with darkness adds a sense of inevitability to the carnage that unfolds. For fans of strange, ambitious horror, Alucarda is a cult treasure. It's a film that's as unnerving as it is hypnotic, offering a VHS-era experience where imagery, atmosphere, and shock collide. By the end, viewers are left both mesmerized and unsettled, reminded of a time when horror could be unapologetically wild, surreal, and unforgettable. Next of Kin, 1982. Some homes carry history. Montclair carries something far heavier. In Tony Williams's 1982 film Next of Kin, the sprawling retirement estate becomes more than just a setting. It's a labyrinth of secrets, dread, and slow-burning terror. The story follows Linda Stevens, played by Jackie Caron, who inherits Montclair after the death of her mother and aunt. On the surface, it seems like a chance to settle into a quiet role as caretaker. But almost immediately, the house pushes back. Strange noises echo in the halls, lights flicker without reason, and scraps of an old diary suggest that Montclair's past hides something sinister. As Linda digs deeper, her sense of reality begins to fray. Is she uncovering family secrets, or is the house itself playing tricks? The line between psychological and supernatural horror blurs, leaving both her and the audience unsure of what to trust. Williams paces the film with patience, letting unease build gradually instead of rushing toward shocks. Gary Hansen's cinematography lingers on shadowy hallways and empty rooms, while Klaus Schultz's eerie electronic score seeps into every frame, keeping tension alive even in silence. By the time Linda uncovers the truth, Montclair feels less like a building and more like a living presence, something that watches, remembers, and resists. The revelations are unsettling not just for their horror, but for what they say about family, legacy, and the weight of the past. Often described as a hidden gem of Australian horror, Next of Kin has earned its reputation for atmosphere and restraint. It doesn't overwhelm with spectacle, it unsettles with suggestion. And that slow, creeping dread is what lingers long after the credits roll. The Resurrected is a chilling horror film directed by Dan O'Bannon, based on H.P. Lovecraft's novella, The Case of Charles Dexter Ward. The film follows private investigator John March, played by John Terry, who is hired by Claire Ward, portrayed by Jane Sibbett, to uncover the truth about her husband Charles Dexter Ward, played by Chris Sarandon. Set in modern-day Rhode Island, the story unfolds as Claire becomes increasingly concerned about Charles's obsession with his family's dark past and his strange experiments in a remote cabin. As March investigates, he discovers that Charles is delving into necromancy and other forbidden sciences, resurrecting the dead in a quest for immortality. With a runtime of 1 hour and 48 minutes, The Resurrected expertly blends elements of body horror, mystery, and the supernatural. The film is marked by its atmospheric cinematography and a haunting score by Richard Band, which enhances the unsettling mood. O'Bannon, known for his work on Alien and Return of the Living Dead, infuses the film with a sense of dread and intrigue. The narrative features flashbacks that weave together Charles's disturbing past with the present investigation, creating a complex story that keeps viewers engaged. The performances are compelling, particularly Sarandon's portrayal of the increasingly unhinged Charles Dexter Ward. His transformation throughout the film highlights the psychological horror at play as he grapples with his dark heritage and the consequences of his actions. Despite its strengths, The Resurrected has faced criticism for its pacing, with some viewers noting that it can feel drawn out. However, the film's dedication to Lovecraft's themes and its faithful adaptation of the source material are commendable. As the film nears its end, John March confronts Charles in a chilling showdown, where the boundaries between life and death blur. In a haunting final scene, as the shadows of the past close in, the camera pulls back to reveal the remote cabin surrounded by fog, leaving viewers with a lingering sense of dread. The screen fades to black, accompanied by echoes of Charles's twisted experiments, suggesting that the pursuit of forbidden knowledge may unleash horrors that transcend even death itself. The Resurrected invites viewers to ponder the depths of obsession and the haunting question, what truly lies beyond the veil of life? This unsettling conclusion resonates long after the credits roll, ensuring the film's place in the realm of thought-provoking horror. The Last Dragon, 1985. The Last Dragon is a vibrant martial arts film directed by Michael Schultz that perfectly encapsulates the spirit of the 1980s. Released in 1985, this 109-minute movie follows Leroy Green, portrayed by Ty Mack, a young martial artist in New York City on a quest to achieve the final level of mastery known as the Glow. The plot unfolds as Leroy seeks to balance his desire for peace with his need to confront the villainous Shonuff, played by Julius Carey, who embodies the quintessential over-the-top bad guy. The film is infused with catchy music, thanks to its Motown production roots, and features the stunning Vanity as Laura Charles, adding a romantic subplot to Leroy's journey. With an IMDb rating of 6.8, The Last Dragon is celebrated for its campy charm, memorable one-liners, and impressive martial arts choreography. The film pays homage to classic martial arts cinema while embracing its unique blend of comedy and action, making it a beloved cult classic. Visually, the film is a feast for the eyes, showcasing the colorful fashion and pop culture of the era. Its energetic soundtrack and fun character dynamics make it a feel-good experience that resonates with audiences. If you're looking for a film that combines martial arts, music, and a dose of humor, The Last Dragon is definitely worth checking out. It's a nostalgic trip that captures the essence of its time and leaves viewers with a smile. Street Trash, 1987. Street Trash is a notorious cult classic directed by J. Michael Muro, blending dark comedy, horror, and body horror in a way that's as outrageous as it is entertaining. Released in 1987, this 91-minute film dives into the gritty underbelly of New York City, where a liquor store owner unknowingly sells a toxic concoction called Tenafly Viper to the local homeless population. The film opens with a shocking premise. When the homeless drink this lethal brew, they don't just get drunk, they melt into colorful goo. The visceral special effects and over-the-top gore create a unique viewing experience that pushes boundaries and challenges the viewer's tolerance for the grotesque. Following the chaos unleashed by the Tenafly Viper, we meet a cast of eccentric characters, including Fred, played by Mike Lackey, and Bronson, portrayed by Vic Noto. Their misadventures unfold against a backdrop of violence, necrophilia, and absurdity, all while maintaining a satirical edge that comments on social issues. With an IMDb rating of 5.9, Street Trash isn't for the faint of heart. It's a film defined by its unapologetic exploration of taboo subjects and its blend of humor with horror. The script is filled with memorable one-liners and outrageous scenarios, making it a distinctive entry in the realm of independent cinema. Though it may not appeal to everyone, those who appreciate its raw, unfiltered approach often find themselves captivated by its audacity. As a quintessential example of 80s B-horror, Street Trash has garnered a dedicated following for its unique take on the horror comedy genre. If you're looking for a film that's unapologetically bizarre and filled with wild imagination, Street Trash is definitely worth a watch. Alice, 1988. In Alice, directed by Jan Svankmajer, we are treated to a surrealistic and darkly imaginative reimagining of Lewis Carroll's classic tale. This film, running for 86 minutes, combines live action with stop-motion animation, creating a visually striking and often unsettling experience. The story follows Alice, played by the enchanting Kristina Kohautova, as she navigates a bizarre and twisted version of Wonderland. Unlike the whimsical adaptations we commonly see, Svankmajer presents a nightmarish landscape filled with grotesque characters and unsettling imagery. From the very beginning, Alice's journey is marked by a sense of dread. The film opens with her contemplating her surroundings before being drawn into a world where the familiar becomes strange. The White Rabbit, for instance, is not the charming character we expect, but a disturbing figure that loses its stuffing and pulls out its watch from its stomach. Throughout her journey, Alice encounters a variety of surreal creatures, such as a sailing rat and a phallic frog footman, all presented with a blend of dark humor and horror. This adaptation explores themes of childhood innocence and the oppressive realities of growing up, contrasting the playful spirit of the original story with a more sinister undertone. Svankmajer's mastery of animation brings everyday objects to life, creating a dreamlike atmosphere that is both enchanting and disturbing. The film's unique visual style captures the essence of a child's imagination, while also reflecting the darker aspects of reality. With an IMDb rating of 7.4, Alice stands out as a bold artistic statement that challenges conventional storytelling. It invites viewers to reconsider the nature of dreams and the loss of innocence, making it a fascinating watch for those who appreciate innovative cinema. If you're ready for an experience that deviates from the norm and delves into the surreal, this film is certainly worth exploring. Lady Stay Dead, 1981. Set against the bright, deceptively calm backdrop of Sydney's suburbs, Lady Stay Dead is anything but sunny. Directed by Terry Bork in 1981, it takes the slasher formula and twists it into something more intimate and unsettling, a slow burn of obsession and violence. At the center is Gordon Mason, a handyman whose quiet, awkward demeanor masks a far darker side. He works at the Rocky Beach Motel, where his infatuation with his employer Marie begins to spiral. When Marie resists his advances, the situation turns horrific, leading to a brutal assault and her death. But the horror doesn't end there. Soon after, Marie's sister Jenny arrives, completely unaware of what has happened. She moves into the same home, at first enjoying its quiet charm, until she starts noticing strange details, small disruptions, unnerving behaviors, things that don't add up. Piece by piece, she begins to sense that she's living alongside a predator. Unlike many slashers of its era, Lady Stay Dead doesn't rely on constant bloodshed to scare its audience. Instead, it thrives on atmosphere and creeping dread. Empty corridors, subtle shadows, and the sense of being watched create a mood of paranoia. The performances keep the story grounded, making the violence feel disturbingly real rather than cartoonish. The pacing is deliberate, forcing viewers to sit in the tension as it builds. By the time the danger becomes unavoidable, the suspense is almost unbearable. What makes the film memorable isn't just the violence itself, but the way it captures obsession and the fragility of safety in familiar spaces. Behind the sunny facade of suburbia lies a nightmare, one that lingers long after the final scene. Lady Stay Dead may not be as well known as other horror titles of the early 80s, but it remains an unnerving reminder that true terror often comes from the people we least expect. Night of the Comet, 1984. Night of the Comet is a cult classic sci-fi horror comedy directed by Tom Eberhardt, released in 1984. The film begins with the spectacular arrival of a comet that passes close to Earth, leading to unexpected and catastrophic consequences. As the comet's tail envelops the planet, most of the population is turned to dust, while a few survivors are left to navigate a post-apocalyptic world. The story centers on two teenage sisters, Reggie, played by Catherine Mary Stewart, and Samantha, played by Kelly Maroney. They wake up to find themselves among the few who are unaffected by the comet's effects. Initially, they revel in their newfound freedom, enjoying shopping sprees and the thrill of being seemingly alone in Los Angeles. However, their carefree existence is short-lived as they soon discover that they are not alone. They encounter other survivors, as well as a group of zombie-like creatures who have been transformed by the comet. As the sisters fight for their survival, they must confront both the dangers of their new reality and the challenges of their relationship as siblings. The film cleverly blends elements of science fiction, horror, and comedy, providing social commentary on consumerism and the teenage experience. The vibrant 1980s aesthetic and catchy soundtrack contribute to its nostalgic charm. The characters are relatable, and their witty banter adds a lighthearted touch to the darker themes. With a runtime of 95 minutes, Night of the Comet combines thrills with laughs, making it an entertaining watch. Its unique premise and strong performances from Stewart and Maroney have earned it a dedicated fan base over the years. As you dive into Night of the Comet, prepare for a fun and thrilling ride through a world turned upside down, where survival, sisterhood, and humor intertwine in a delightfully unexpected way. Hardware is a gripping sci-fi horror film directed by Richard Stanley. Set in a post-apocalyptic future, the world has been ravaged by nuclear war, resulting in a desolate landscape filled with radioactivity and high temperatures. The story follows Moses Mo Baxter, portrayed by Dylan McDermott, a soldier who discovers a cyborg head and hand in the desert. He brings these parts back to his girlfriend, Jill, played by Stacey Travis, who is an artist creating sculptures. Unbeknownst to them, the head belongs to the dangerous Mark 13, a military project designed to be an autonomous killing machine. As Jill incorporates the cyborg head into her art, the machine begins to reassemble itself, using various household items and tools. The film escalates into a terrifying scenario as Mark 13, now fully operational, goes on a violent rampage, targeting anyone in its way. With a runtime of 1 hour and 34 minutes, Hardware combines elements of cyberpunk, dark comedy, and horror. The film's cinematography effectively captures the bleak and oppressive atmosphere of its world, though some viewers have noted that it can be overly dark at times. The film is notable for its innovative special effects, especially given its modest budget of $1.5 million. It has gained a cult following over the years, holding an IMDb rating of 5.9 out of 10. While some critics dismiss it as a B-movie, many fans appreciate its unique style and the thought-provoking themes it presents about technology and humanity. The performances, particularly by McDermott and Travis, add depth to the characters as they face the looming threat of the cyborg. The film also features a memorable score that enhances its tense atmosphere, making it a standout in the genre. As the film reaches its climax, the final confrontation between Mo and the resurrected Mark 13 unfolds in a chaotic battle of survival. In a shocking twist, Mo realizes that the only way to stop the machine is to embrace its technology, allowing it to integrate with him. The screen fades to black as the last remnants of humanity grapple with the consequences of their creations. In the end, Hardware leaves viewers with a haunting question. In a world where technology and humanity collide, what price are we willing to pay for survival? This unsettling conclusion lingers long after the credits roll, inviting contemplation on our relationship with technology and the future that awaits. God Told Me To, 1976. Larry Cohen's God Told Me To, 1976, is an audacious and unsettling blend of horror, sci-fi, and psychological thriller. The story follows New York City detective Peter Nicholas as he investigates a string of bizarre murders. Each killer claims divine command, God told me to. What begins as a seemingly straightforward case gradually spirals into cosmic horror, alien influence, and a deeply philosophical exploration of free will and faith. The film excels at combining gritty, urban realism with surreal horror. Streets, apartments, and subway stations are filmed in a way that emphasizes claustrophobia, tension, and a constant sense of unease. As Nicholas uncovers the truth behind the killings, the narrative expands into a strange, existential realm where human action and divine or alien forces collide. The pacing is deliberate, allowing suspense and disorientation to build, making the ultimate revelations both shocking and thought-provoking. God Told Me To is a quintessential VHS era oddity because it refuses to stay within a single genre. It's part detective story, part sci-fi thriller, part psychological horror, and all unnerving. The mixture of grounded suspense, shocking imagery, and philosophical inquiry makes the film a uniquely memorable experience, one that feels like it was made for late-night tape rentals and curious cinephiles. By the conclusion, viewers are left questioning morality, fate, and the limits of human comprehension. God Told Me To is a rare example of a film that is as intellectually stimulating as it is frightening, capturing the audacious spirit of VHS-era horror and leaving a lasting impression on anyone who dares to watch. Vigilante, 1982. Vigilante, directed by William Lustig, is a gritty and emotionally charged revenge thriller that explores what happens when the justice system fails ordinary people. The story follows Eddie Marino, played by Robert Forster, a factory worker whose life is violently upended when a street gang attacks his family. With the police unable or unwilling to help, Eddie is left to confront the criminals on his own. He eventually joins a group of vigilantes led by Nick, portrayed by Fred Williamson. Together, they decide to take the law into their own hands and go after the men who terrorize their city. What makes Vigilante stand out is its realistic and uncompromising depiction of urban crime. Lustig does not sugarcoat the violence or the consequences of taking justice into one's own hands. Every scene is tense, with a sense of urgency that keeps viewers on edge. Robert Forster's performance is subtle, but powerful, showing a man push beyond his limits while maintaining his humanity. Fred Williamson brings strength and charisma as the experienced vigilante leader, and supporting roles from Richard Bright and Rutanya Alda add emotional depth and credibility to the story. The direction and Richard Vitera's script work together to create a film that is both intense and thoughtful. The action sequences are raw and visceral, yet the film also pauses to explore the emotional toll that violence and loss take on Eddie. The movie examines the thin line between justice and revenge and asks difficult questions about morality in a society where the system fails its citizens. Vigilante is not just a revenge story, it is a portrait of desperation, grief, and the lengths people will go to protect what they love. It remains a standout of early 1980s urban thrillers and is highly recommended for viewers who appreciate intense character-driven stories that combine action with a real sense of danger. Liquid Sky, 1982. Liquid Sky is a groundbreaking film directed by Slava Zuckerman that blends elements of science fiction, thriller, and dark comedy. Released in 1982, this 112-minute film explores the underground world of New York City's fashion scene through the eyes of a drug-addicted model named Margaret, played by Anne Carlisle. The plot centers around a small UFO that lands on a Manhattan rooftop, seeking heroin. As the aliens observe Margaret's bizarre lifestyle, they discover that they can extract endorphins from her sexual encounters, leading to a series of darkly comedic and surreal events. The film is visually striking, characterized by its vibrant colors and unique aesthetic that captures the punk and new wave sensibilities of the early 80s. Its low-budget roots contribute to its charm, providing a raw and unconventional take on the sci-fi genre. Critically divisive, Liquid Sky has garnered a cult following for its audacious approach to themes of sexuality, addiction, and societal norms. It features memorable performances and a captivating score that enhances the film's otherworldly atmosphere. With an IMDb rating of 6.0, the film is both a celebration and critique of its era, making it a must-see for those who appreciate avant-garde cinema. Its blend of humor and horror, along with its commentary on the fashion industry, makes Liquid Sky an unforgettable experience. If you're in the mood for something truly unique and bizarre, Liquid Sky is definitely worth a watch. Life Force, 1985. Life Force is a unique blend of science fiction, horror, and thriller, directed by Tobe Hooper, released in 1985. The film begins with a dramatic space mission to Halley's Comet, where a team of astronauts discovers a mysterious alien spacecraft. Inside, they find a trio of stunning humanoid aliens, who are soon brought back to Earth. The story takes a dark turn when these extraterrestrial beings are inadvertently awakened and unleashed upon an unsuspecting world. What makes this film particularly intriguing is the concept that these aliens feed on human life force, draining their victims of energy and leaving them as lifeless husks. As chaos ensues, the film explores themes of seduction, mortality, and the very essence of life itself. The narrative follows Colonel Tom Carlson, played by Steve Railsback, who is one of the few survivors from the space mission. He becomes embroiled in the government's efforts to contain the alien threat while grappling with his own transformation. The film features a standout performance by Matilda May as the alluring alien vampire, whose presence drives much of the film's tension and horror. Visually, Life Force is striking, showcasing impressive special effects for its time, particularly in its depiction of the alien creatures and their devastating power. The film's atmosphere is enhanced by a haunting score that underscores the sense of dread and urgency throughout. Clocking in at 101 minutes, Life Force is known for its unique blend of genres, combining elements of horror with sci-fi action. It received mixed reviews upon release, but has since gained a cult following for its ambitious storytelling and striking visuals. As you watch Life Force, prepare for a wild ride that challenges traditional sci-fi tropes and delves into the darker aspects of human existence. It's a film that invites viewers to consider what it means to be alive and the nature of life itself. The Brood, 1979. The Brood is a chilling horror film directed by David Cronenberg, released in 1979. This 92-minute film delves into the disturbing realms of psychological horror and body horror, showcasing Cronenberg's signature style. The story revolves around Nola Carveth, played by Samantha Eggar, who undergoes an unconventional therapy led by the enigmatic Dr. Hal Raglan, portrayed by Oliver Reed. As Nola processes her emotional trauma, she gives birth to a group of deformed children who manifest her rage and pain, leading to a series of brutal murders. With an IMDb rating of 6.8, The Brood explores themes of motherhood, trauma, and the psychological effects of abuse. The film's unsettling atmosphere is heightened by its innovative special effects and stark cinematography, creating a sense of dread that lingers long after viewing. Cronenberg's exploration of the mind-body connection is both provocative and disturbing, making this film a powerful commentary on the complexities of human emotion. The performances, particularly by Eggar and Reed, are compelling, adding depth to this harrowing narrative. The Brood is not just a horror film. It's a unique exploration of the darker aspects of human nature, making it a must-watch for fans of psychological thrillers and horror alike. If you're in the mood for a film that challenges perceptions of family and trauma, this one is definitely worth a look. Harlequin, 1980. In Harlequin, Simon Winsor's 1980 supernatural thriller, the ordinary and the extraordinary collide in unsettling ways. It begins with a child's birthday party, innocent enough, until a stranger named Gregory Wolfe arrives and seemingly cures the boy's terminal illness. From that moment on, Wolfe, played with magnetic intensity by Robert Powell, becomes a figure impossible to ignore. Wolfe isn't just a healer. He's enigmatic, charismatic, and deeply unsettling, a man who slips seamlessly into the lives of Senator Nick Rast and his wife Sandra. At first they welcome him, even rely on him. But the more influence he gains, the more uneasy those around him become. Doc Whelan, a calculating political kingmaker, sees Wolfe as dangerous, not just to the balance of power, but to the very control he's built over the senator's career. What unfolds is less about miracles and more about manipulation, faith, and the way influence spreads when wrapped in mystery. Wolfe's role in the story clearly echoes Rasputin, the mystic who captivated and destabilized Russian royalty. Like Rasputin, Wolfe straddles the line between savior and menace, his motives impossible to pin down. The film leans heavily on atmosphere. Cinematography drenches scenes in unease, and Brian May's score reinforces the sense that something unnatural is always lurking just beneath the surface. Rather than relying on shocks or spectacle, Harlequin draws tension from power struggles, political, personal, and spiritual. Though critics at the time weren't sure what to make of its mix of supernatural mysticism and political drama, the film has since found its audience. Today it's admired for being bold, strange, and unwilling to fit neatly into one genre. By the end, Harlequin leaves its central question unresolved. Is Gregory Wolfe a miracle worker, a manipulator, or something in between? That ambiguity makes the film not just a thriller, but a haunting meditation on how power, real or imagined, can reshape the world around it. Rolling Thunder, 1977. Rolling Thunder, directed by John Flynn, is a powerful revenge thriller that explores trauma, loss, and the consequences of violence. The story follows Major Charles Rain, played by William Devane, a Vietnam War veteran who returns home after 7 years as a prisoner of war. He finds his life irrevocably changed. A violent home invasion claims the lives of his loved ones and leaves Rane physically and emotionally scarred. Devastated and consumed by grief, he embarks on a relentless quest for vengeance against the men responsible. The film examines the psychological and emotional effects of war and violence. Rane's transformation from a broken, traumatized man into a focused and determined avenger drives the narrative. Tommy Lee Jones plays Johnny Vodin, Rane's loyal friend and ally, bringing depth and humanity to the story as they navigate a dangerous path of retribution together. Flynn's direction balances intense action with moments of reflection. The pacing allows for the development of character and emotion while building to climactic confrontations that carry weight and impact. The film also explores themes of morality, justice, and the long-lasting effects of trauma. Rolling Thunder is more than a revenge story. It is a deep and compelling look at the costs of violence and the human spirit's response to loss and injustice. For fans of thoughtful, intense 1970s action cinema, Rolling Thunder remains a powerful and unforgettable classic. Assault on Precinct 13, 1976. Assault on Precinct 13, directed by John Carpenter, is one of the most influential action thrillers of the 1970s. It is a masterclass in building suspense and creating tension that lingers long after the film ends. The story takes place on a hot summer night in Los Angeles. A police precinct scheduled for closure finds itself under siege by a violent gang. Inside, a small group of officers and civilians is trapped. Lieutenant Ethan Bishop leads the defense with calm determination. He is joined by Napoleon Wilson, a hardened criminal who proves to be a surprisingly reliable ally. With no reinforcements and limited resources, they must hold off wave after wave of attackers. Every hallway, every stairwell, every flickering light adds to the sense of claustrophobia and imminent danger. Carpenter's direction is precise. The film's minimalist setting contributes to the tension, and the haunting synth-heavy score elevates the suspense. Each moment feels charged with anxiety, and even in quiet scenes, there is a sense of unease that makes the action feel even more intense. The pacing is deliberate, allowing character moments to breathe while keeping the audience engaged and on edge. Beyond the siege and the shootouts, Assault on Precinct 13 is a story about loyalty, survival, and the human instinct to persevere in the face of overwhelming odds. It examines the moral complexity of working together when lives are at stake, especially when the lines between lawmen and criminals become blurred. The film's influence on the action genre is undeniable, inspiring countless remakes, homages, and urban siege thrillers in the decades that followed. For anyone who enjoys taut, suspenseful thrillers with memorable characters and relentless tension, Assault on Precinct 13 remains essential viewing. Its combination of smart storytelling, unforgettable atmosphere, and intense action has stood the test of time. Night of the Scarecrow, 1995. Rural horror meets supernatural revenge in Night of the Scarecrow, directed by Jeff Burr in 1995. The story begins when a small town accidentally resurrects a vengeful spirit, bound to a scarecrow. What follows is a grisly series of attacks as the entity exacts revenge for past wrongs, turning the quiet community into a bloody battleground. The scarecrow itself is a striking figure, part monster, part avenger, lurking in cornfields and striking with brutal force. The film embraces classic horror tropes, pitchforks, barns, dark country roads, but infuses them with supernatural flair, making the villain more than just a man in a mask. Instead, the scarecrow feels elemental, a spirit tied to the land itself. As the killings escalate, the townspeople's buried secrets are dragged into the open, revealing that the scarecrow's wrath isn't random. It's justice twisted into something monstrous. The film's pacing keeps the tension high, mixing atmospheric dread with splashes of gory spectacle. Night of the Scarecrow may not have been a mainstream hit, but it has earned a place among cult horror fans who love its blend of rural Gothic mood and supernatural mayhem. At its best, it captures the primal fear of the fields at night, silent, endless, and hiding something waiting to move just beyond the stalks. Hellbound, Hellraiser 2, 1988. Hellraiser 2 continues the nightmarish journey introduced in Clive Barker's original Hellraiser, diving deeper into the dark and twisted world of the Cenobites. Directed by Tony Randall, This 1988 sequel follows Kirsty Cotton, played by Ashley Lawrence, as she struggles to recover from the horrific events of the first film. Kirsty wakes up in a psychiatric hospital, still haunted by her encounters with Pinhead and the other Cenobites. The staff question her sanity, but the real danger comes from Dr. Channard, played by Kenneth Cranham, a doctor whose obsession with the lament configuration puzzle box leads him down a path of unspeakable evil. Channard manages to resurrect Julia, the monstrous figure from the first film, setting in motion a series of events that draw Kirsty back into the Cenobites' realm. This film pushes the boundaries of horror, exploring the interplay between pleasure and pain while expanding on the mythology of hell and its nightmarish inhabitants. The Cenobites are more fully realized here, with new layers to their rules, desires, and terrifying presence. Doug Bradley returns as Pinhead, delivering a chilling and commanding performance that reinforces why the character has become an icon in horror cinema. Visually, the film is striking. The practical effects and makeup are grotesque, imaginative, and unforgettable, bringing the twisted world of the Cenobites to life in a way that feels both surreal and horrifying. From the dark corridors of the hospital to the hellish landscapes beyond, every frame builds tension and unease. Beyond the scares, the story gives Kirsty a stronger role, highlighting her determination, courage, and resourcefulness as she navigates impossible threats. The combination of suspense, psychological terror, and body horror keeps the audience constantly on edge. While it initially received mixed reviews, Hellbound, Hellraiser 2 has grown into a cult favorite, praised for its ambitious expansion of the Hellraiser universe. Its mixture of horror, fantasy, and complex mythology ensures that it stands out not just as a sequel, but as a bold and memorable entry in the franchise. By the end, viewers are left with a lingering sense of dread and awe, a testament to the film's ability to terrify while deepening the terrifying world of the Cenobites. Popcorn is a unique blend of slasher horror and comedy directed by Mark Harrier and Alan Ormsby. Set in the early 1990s, the film follows a group of college students who decide to host a horror movie marathon in an old, abandoned theater. Their goal is to raise funds for their film department, which has been hit by budget cuts. The event features vintage horror films, complete with gimmicks like Aroma-Rama, 3D glasses, and shock seats, creating a nostalgic atmosphere reminiscent of classic drive-in experiences. However, the festive spirit is quickly overshadowed when a deranged killer, a master of disguise, begins to stalk and murder the students one by one. The film stars Jill Sholin as Maggie, a student haunted by nightmares involving a sinister figure from an old film. Tom Villard plays Toby, her eccentric friend, while Dee Wallace delivers a memorable performance as Suzanne, adding to the film's charm. With a runtime of 1 hour and 31 minutes, Popcorn combines elements of horror and humor, making it stand out in the crowded slasher genre. The film's self-awareness and clever nods to horror conventions keep viewers entertained, even as the body count rises. Critics have praised the film's originality, noting its ability to mix slasher elements with a comedic tone. The film holds an IMDb rating of 5.9 out of 10, with many fans appreciating its cult status and the engaging performances of the cast. The creative use of classic horror tropes and the film-within-a-film format adds layers to the narrative, making it a fun ride for horror enthusiasts. Despite its flaws, including some uneven pacing and a few cliches, Popcorn remains a beloved entry in the genre. Its playful homage to 1950s horror films and the fun gimmicks featured in the marathon offer an enjoyable viewing experience. As the final scenes unfold, the audience is left in suspense, with Maggie confronting the killer in a climactic showdown. Just when it seems she has triumphed, the screen flickers, and the film cuts to a chilling twist. The events of the movie may not be over. The camera pans out, revealing that the theater is still filled with an audience, and the real horror may be just beginning as the killer's identity remains shrouded in mystery. The film closes with an unsettling reminder that in the world of horror, the line between fiction and reality is often blurred. The Ugly is a psychological horror film directed by Scott Reynolds. The story revolves around Simon Cartwright, a confessed serial killer played by Paolo Rotondo, who has spent the last 5 years in a mental hospital. A female psychologist, Dr. Karen Shoemaker, is brought in to evaluate him, aiming to understand the mind of a murderer. As Dr. Shoemaker delves into Simon's past through a series of interviews, she learns about his traumatic childhood and the events that led to his violent behavior. The film employs a mix of flashbacks, intertwining Simon's dark history with the present, creating a disorienting narrative that keeps viewers on edge. The film is notable for its unique visual style, particularly the use of black blood, which symbolizes Simon's detachment from humanity. This artistic choice adds a surreal quality to the horror, blurring the lines between reality and Simon's twisted perceptions. With a runtime of 1 hour and 33 minutes, The Ugly blends elements of drama, horror, and thriller genres. It explores themes of trauma, identity, and the nature of evil, inviting the audience to empathize with a character who is both a victim and a perpetrator. The film has received mixed reviews, holding an IMDb rating of 6.0 out of 10. Critics have praised the performances, particularly Rotondo's portrayal of Simon, which conveys a complex mix of vulnerability and menace. The character's psychological depth makes him both relatable and terrifying. Despite its shortcomings, such as an ambiguous ending that some viewers found unsatisfactory, The Ugly stands out for its atmospheric tension and psychological depth. The film's eerie score and cinematography enhance its unsettling mood, immersing the audience in Simon's nightmarish world. As the film draws to a close, Dr. Shoemaker confronts Simon with the truth about his past, leading to a climactic moment that forces him to face his demons. In a shocking twist, as he begins to unravel, the screen flickers, and the audience is left questioning what is real. The final scene shows Simon in a mirror, his reflection shifting between the killer and the innocent child he once was. The film ends on this haunting image, leaving viewers to ponder the duality of human nature and the thin line between sanity and madness. The Ugly invites viewers to confront the darker aspects of the human psyche while maintaining a gripping narrative. For fans of psychological horror, this film is a compelling exploration of the mind of a killer, challenging conventional horror tropes and lingering long after the credits roll. Sleepaway Camp is a cult classic horror film released in 1983, directed by Robert Hiltzik. The story follows Angela Baker, portrayed by Felissa Rose, a shy and introverted teenager who, along with her cousin Ricky, is sent to Camp Arawak for the summer. What begins as a typical camp experience quickly turns sinister as a series of gruesome murders unfold. The film opens with a tragic incident from Angela's childhood that sets the stage for her psychological struggles. As the camp season progresses, Angela becomes the target of bullying and cruel pranks from her peers, which intensifies the tension. The film explores themes of identity, trauma, and the darker sides of adolescence, all while maintaining a slasher film format. Throughout the movie, the body count rises, with inventive and shocking death scenes that have become iconic in horror cinema. The performances, particularly by Rose and Jonathan Tiersten as Ricky, add depth to the characters, making the viewer invested in their fates. One of the standout features of Sleepaway Camp is its notorious twist ending, which has shocked audiences since its release. The film's climactic reveal has cemented its place in horror history, often discussed and dissected by fans and critics alike. With a runtime of 84 minutes, Sleepaway Camp is known for its campy aesthetic, 80s charm, and memorable dialogue. Despite its low budget and mixed reviews upon release, it has gained a loyal following, currently holding an IMDb rating of 6.2. The film is celebrated for its unique take on the slasher genre and remains a staple in horror movie marathons. The combination of suspense, dark humor, and an unforgettable finale makes Sleepaway Camp a must-see for horror aficionados, ensuring its legacy continues in the genre. Lisa and the Devil, 1973. Lisa and the Devil, directed by Mario Bava in 1973, is a surreal, nightmarish exploration of gothic horror that thrives on ambiguity and dreamlike terror. The film follows Lisa, a young woman trapped in a mansion filled with sinister figures, ghostly apparitions, and cryptic rituals. Time and space distort as she moves through the house, creating a disorienting sense of inescapable doom where reality bends and the living coexist uneasily with the dead. Bava's visual mastery dominates every frame. Candlelit halls, deep shadows, and vivid, almost painterly colors immerse the viewer in an environment that feels both beautiful and dangerous. Figures appear and vanish without explanation, and the narrative is intentionally fragmented, enhancing the dreamlike quality. The mansion itself becomes a character, labyrinthine, oppressive, and alive with malevolent intent. The film thrives on psychological tension rather than overt violence. Lisa's journey is as much about navigating fear and isolation as it is about escaping literal danger. Themes of repression, forbidden desire, and fate intertwine, making every encounter feel layered and unpredictable. The combination of horror, surrealism, and the Gothic aesthetic places Lisa and the Devil squarely in the realm of VHS era oddities, films meant to captivate, disturb, and leave a lasting impression. By the end, the mansion's horrors linger in the mind, not just through fear but through fascination. Lisa and the Devil is a hypnotic, unsettling experience, a prime example of the type of strange, unforgettable horror that make obscure movies so endlessly compelling. Thirst, 1979. In the sweltering Australian outback, thirst isn't just uncomfortable. It can be deadly. Rod Hardy's 1979 film Thirst takes that simple reality and twists it into a tense, psychological horror, where the environment is as much an enemy as the people around you. The story centers on Christine, a young woman trapped in a small town suffering through a crippling drought. As water becomes scarce, the town's fragile social order begins to collapse. Fear, desperation, and selfishness take hold, and every interaction carries the potential for violence. Christine must navigate this escalating chaos while trying to survive and protect those who rely on her. Hardy uses the harsh landscape to maximum effect. Sun-baked streets, cracked earth, and the oppressive heat make every scene feel stifling, trapping both characters and audience in a suffocating atmosphere. Suspense builds not through cheap scares, but through tension and uncertainty. Who can be trusted? And how far will anyone go when survival is on the line? The film also serves as a cautionary tale about human nature under pressure. Isolation and scarcity strip away civility, revealing how fear and desperation can transform ordinary people into threats. Christine's struggle becomes as much about maintaining her morality as it is about staying alive. By the time the climax arrives, it's clear that the real horror isn't the drought itself. It's what it does to those trapped within it. Thirst remains a compelling example of Australian horror, combining environmental menace with character-driven suspense to create a story that's both thrilling and deeply unsettling. TerrorVision is a horror comedy film released in 1986, directed by Ted Nicolau. The plot revolves around the Putterman family, who install a new satellite television system that inadvertently receives signals from outer space. This leads to the unintended consequence of an alien monster being transported into their home. As the monster begins to wreak havoc, the film blends slapstick humor with horror elements, creating a unique and campy viewing experience. Notable performances include Diane Franklin as Susie, Garrett Graham as Stan, and Mary Woronov as Raquel, who bring a delightful absurdity to their roles. The film is characterized by its colorful set design, quirky characters, and a distinctive visual style that reflects the 1980s aesthetic. It also features a playful critique of suburban life and media consumption, echoing themes from other cult classics of the era. TerrorVision runs for 85 minutes and has garnered a cult following, currently holding an IMDb rating of 5.5. While it may not have been a commercial success upon release, it has since become a beloved film among fans of B-movie horror and comedy. The film showcases a mix of outrageous special effects and comedic moments, making it a fun watch for those who appreciate campy horror. With its bizarre premise and eccentric characters, TerrorVision remains a memorable entry in the genre, celebrated for its creativity and humor. The Dark Half, 1993. Stephen King's fascination with the duality of identity takes center stage in The Dark Half, directed by George A. Romero in 1993. The story follows Thad Beaumont, a novelist who decides to retire his pseudonym, George Stark, a name he once used to publish pulpy crime novels. What seems like a symbolic gesture quickly turns sinister when Stark appears to come to life, stalking Thad and leaving a trail of brutal murders. The film thrives on its central theme, the idea that our darker impulses can't be so easily buried. Timothy Hutton delivers a strong performance in the dual roles of Thad and Stark, embodying both the weary family man and the violent alter ego that refuses to stay fictional. Romero leans into atmosphere and tension rather than nonstop gore, letting the horror seep in through suggestion, shadow, and paranoia. As the murders escalate, Thad must confront the possibility that Stark isn't just a creation of his imagination, but something born from within him, something alive. The psychological battle between author and alter ego becomes as terrifying as the physical violence that follows. The Dark Half isn't just a supernatural thriller, it's a meditation on creativity, identity, and the monsters we create, whether on the page or in ourselves. By the end, it leaves viewers questioning how much control anyone really has over the darkness they try to suppress. Repo Man, 1984. Repo Man is a cult classic directed by Alex Cox, blending elements of dark comedy, crime, and science fiction. Released in 1984, this 92-minute film follows the story of Otto, played by Emilio Estevez, a young punk who finds himself drawn into the bizarre world of car repossession. After losing his job at a supermarket and facing personal setbacks, Otto is introduced to the repo business by seasoned repo man Bud, portrayed by Harry Dean Stanton. The duo embarks on a wild adventure to recover a Chevrolet Malibu with a mysterious and otherworldly secret hidden in its trunk, all while navigating the eccentric subculture of Los Angeles. The film is notable for its unique blend of absurd humor and punk rock aesthetics, capturing the spirit of the 1980s. The dialogue is peppered with memorable one-liners and satirical commentary on consumerism and societal norms, making it a standout in the genre. Throughout the film, we encounter a colorful cast of characters, including street philosophers and alien conspirators, all contributing to the chaotic narrative. The soundtrack features iconic punk bands like Iggy Pop and the Circle Jerks, perfectly complementing the film's edgy vibe. With an IMDb rating of 6.8, Repo Man defies traditional storytelling and embraces a surreal, non-linear approach that keeps viewers engaged. It's a film that invites multiple interpretations, making it a favorite among those who appreciate its offbeat humor and cultural commentary. If you're in the mood for a film that's quirky, entertaining, and steeped in punk rock culture, Repo Man is definitely worth a watch. The Addiction is a thought-provoking horror film directed by Abel Ferrara, combining elements of philosophy and body horror within the vampire genre. The film follows Kathleen Conklin, played by Lily Taylor, a philosophy graduate student in New York City, who becomes entangled in a dark and surreal journey after a fateful encounter with a mysterious woman Casanova, portrayed by Annabella Sciorra. Set against the backdrop of a gritty urban landscape, the film opens with Kathleen experiencing disturbing visions and a sense of existential dread. After being bitten by Casanova, she finds herself grappling with an insatiable thirst for human blood. This transformation serves as an allegory for addiction, exploring themes of sin, morality, and the darker aspects of human nature. With a runtime of 1 hour and 22 minutes, The Addiction uses striking black-and-white cinematography to enhance its bleak and haunting atmosphere. The film's unique visual style complements its philosophical undertones, as Kathleen's struggle reflects broader questions about existence and the human condition. Christopher Walken delivers a memorable performance as Pena, a fellow vampire who offers insights into the nature of their condition, adding depth to the narrative. The film is filled with philosophical musings, making it both intellectually stimulating and unsettling. Critically, The Addiction holds an IMDb rating of 6.5 out of 10. While some viewers may find its pacing slow or its themes heavy-handed, others appreciate its ambitious approach to horror. The film challenges conventional vampire tropes, opting instead for a more cerebral exploration of addiction and morality. As the film reaches its climax, Kathleen confronts the reality of her transformation. In a poignant final scene, she stands at the crossroads of her new existence, caught between the seductive allure of her vampiric nature and the remnants of her humanity. The screen fades to black just as she makes her choice, leaving viewers to ponder the consequences of her decision. The film closes with a haunting question echoing in the silence. Can one truly escape the darkness within, or does it become an inseparable part of us? The Pit is a bizarre blend of horror and dark comedy, released in 1981, directed by Lou Lehman. The film follows Jamie Benjamin, portrayed by Sammy Snyders, a solitary and strange preteen boy who struggles with bullying and feels isolated from his peers. Jamie is not your typical child. He often finds solace in his imagination and his only friend, a teddy bear named Teddy. As he navigates his troubled life, Jamie makes a disturbing discovery in the depths of a nearby forest. A pit inhabited by strange, grotesque creatures he calls tralalogs. These creatures, with their insatiable appetites, become central to Jamie's twisted plan for revenge. When Jamie realizes that the tralalogs need food, he hatches a sinister scheme to lure his tormentors to the pit. This leads to shocking and often darkly humorous consequences, as Jamie's actions spiral out of control. The film explores themes of isolation, revenge, and the blurred line between childhood innocence and malevolence. The supporting cast includes Jeannie Elias as Sandy O'Reilly and Sonia Smits as Mrs. Lind, who help flesh out the narrative and provide context to Jamie's troubled world. Their interactions with Jamie highlight his struggles, making his descent into darkness all the more unsettling. Despite its low budget and mixed critical reception, The Pit has carved out a niche for itself, currently holding an IMDb rating of 5.7. Fans appreciate its odd charm and the unique premise that blends horror with dark comedy. The film has become a cult classic, often celebrated for its memorable scenes, particularly the infamous wheelchair scene, which showcases the film's signature blend of horror and humor. The film also touches on deeper themes, such as the challenges faced by children who feel different or misunderstood. Jamie's character, described as autistic, adds complexity to his interactions and the way he perceives the world around him, making him both a sympathetic and disturbing figure. With its eccentric storytelling and unsettling atmosphere, The Pit remains a fascinating entry in 80s horror cinema. It appeals to fans of the genre looking for something unconventional and thought-provoking, making it a must-watch for those who appreciate cult classics. The Texas Chainsaw Massacre 2, 1986. The Texas Chainsaw Massacre 2 takes the iconic horror of the original and turns it on its head, blending grotesque terror with dark humor and biting satire. Directed by Tobe Hooper in 1986, this sequel follows radio host Stretch, played by Caroline Williams, who accidentally stumbles into a nightmare after recording one of Leatherface's horrifying murders. From the moment Stretch becomes entangled with Leatherface and his cannibalistic family, the film dives into a bizarre, chaotic world. The family is more grotesque, more deranged, and more eccentric than ever, with the addition of Chop Top, played memorably by Bill Moseley. His twisted antics and sadistic humor inject the film with a strange energy, balancing horror with absurdity in a way that makes the movie uniquely unsettling. Hooper's direction is fearless, mixing shocking gore with moments of satirical commentary. The opening scenes immediately establish the tone, showcasing extreme violence while also reflecting on society's obsession with media and sensationalism. Tom Savini's practical effects elevate the film, delivering gruesome imagery that is both shocking and strangely captivating. Caroline Williams anchors the story with a grounded performance, transforming from a confident radio personality into a terrified survivor fighting for her life. Her escalating fear mirrors the audience's own disorientation as the line between horror and dark comedy blurs. The family's twisted sense of loyalty and ritualistic behavior adds another layer of terror, exploring the themes of madness and the grotesque distortions of familial bonds. While the film initially received mixed reviews, it has since developed a cult following. Fans appreciate how it boldly strays from the original straight horror formula, embracing a more satirical, over-the-top approach while maintaining a tense, unsettling atmosphere. By the end, the Texas Chainsaw Massacre 2 leaves a lasting impression, combining visceral gore, dark humor, and social commentary in a way that only Tobe Hooper could deliver. It's a film that shocks, entertains, and lingers in your mind long after the credits roll, a standout in both the franchise and 1980s horror cinema. The Baby, 1973. Few films capture the unsettling, strange energy of 70s exploitation horror, like The Baby, directed by Ted Post in 1973. The story follows social worker Anne Gentry, who becomes involved with a bizarre case. A grown man, known only as Baby, who is kept in diapers, treated like an infant, and confined to his mother and two sisters' control. Despite being an adult, Baby is infantilized and denied any independence, creating a tense, claustrophobic environment where control and obsession dominate every interaction. As Anne investigates, she uncovers a twisted power dynamic within the family. Baby is not just a man-child. He's a focal point of psychological terror, a figure whose innocence is artificial, masking darker truths about manipulation, cruelty, and dependency. Anne's growing realization that this family's influence reaches deep into every corner of Baby's life adds a suffocating sense of unease. The horror in The Baby doesn't rely on traditional monsters or gore. Instead, it comes from the discomfort of watching human behavior pushed to extremes. The cinematography often isolates Baby in stark, confined spaces, amplifying the unnerving feeling that something has gone fundamentally wrong in his world. Each moment of interaction feels loaded with tension, and as the story progresses, that tension escalates into moments that are both shocking and deeply disturbing. Over the years, The Baby has gained a cult following for precisely this combination of psychological tension, bizarre subject matter, and exploitation-era audacity. It's a movie that exemplifies the kinds of odd, provocative stories that thrived in the VHS era, films that challenged expectations and lingered in memory long after the tape stopped rolling. Watching it now, you can feel the era's willingness to push boundaries, crafting a horror story that is strange, unsettling, and completely unforgettable. Let Sleeping Corpses Lie, aka The Living Dead at Manchester Morgue, 1974. In the mid-70s, when zombie movies were starting to claw their way into horror history, Spain and Italy teamed up to give us Let Sleeping Corpses Lie. Directed by Jorge Grau, it takes the classic undead formula and gives it a fresh twist with a dose of environmental paranoia. The story follows George, played by Ray Lovelock, who's just trying to make his way through the English countryside. A chance run-in with a young woman named Edna, played by Christina Galbeau, ends up pulling him into something far darker than either of them could have expected. Local scientists are experimenting with a new kind of technology that uses ultrasonic radiation to kill insects. But of course, this being horror, that little invention has a side effect. It wakes up the dead. Suddenly, the quiet green countryside is crawling with flesh-hungry zombies. George and Edna find themselves in the wrong place at the wrong time, getting blamed for a string of murders while the real culprits, the undead, keep multiplying. Standing in their way is an inspector, played by Arthur Kennedy, whose arrogance and prejudice only make things worse. His refusal to see what's really happening turns him into almost as big a threat as the zombies themselves. What sets this one apart from other zombie flicks of the time is how it mixes social commentary with its scares. Grau uses the film to talk about pollution, technology, and the dangers of messing with nature. The English countryside looks gorgeous on screen, but it's constantly contrasted with gore and decay, driving home the film's ecological warning. And speaking of gore, the zombie attacks here are brutal and memorable, with some of the best practical effects of the era. It doesn't shy away from showing the flesh-eating horror, but it's never just shock for shock's sake. Everything ties back into that uneasy balance between humanity, science, and nature. Let Sleeping Corpses Lie is often compared to Romero's Night of the Living Dead, and while the influence is obvious, it brings its own flavor to the genre. It's atmospheric, it's unsettling, and it has just enough brains, no pun intended, to make it more than just another zombie movie. Nearly 50 years later, it still holds up as one of the standout Euro horror takes on the undead. If you're a fan of zombie cinema and you haven't checked it out, this one's absolutely worth digging up. Campfire Tales, 1997. Campfire Tales, directed by Matt Cooper, Martin Kunert, and David Semmel in 1997, is a horror anthology that taps into the timeless tradition of swapping scary stories by firelight. The framing device follows a group of friends, stranded after a car accident, who gather around a fire to tell each other tales. What unfolds is a mix of urban legends, supernatural encounters, and twisted morality plays. Each segment has its own tone, from eerie ghost stories to gruesome tales of betrayal, creating a patchwork of horror that feels like the 90s answer to classics like Creepshow. The anthology format lets the film keep a brisk pace, with each story delivering its own scares and surprises before moving on to the next. The real strength lies in its nostalgia. Campfire Tales feels like a cinematic version of those whispered urban myths we all grew up with. Stories about mysterious hitchhikers, unseen stalkers, and chilling coincidences. It leans on atmosphere as much as gore, creating an experience that's both fun and unsettling. For horror fans, it's a love letter to the stories that shaped our earliest fears. Campfire Tales may not reinvent the genre, but it captures the thrill of being scared with friends in the dark, where every sound in the woods feels like part of the story. Razorback, 1984. The Australian outback is a place where everything can kill you. Heat, thirst, isolation. In Russell Mulcahy's 1984 film Razorback, that danger takes monstrous form in the shape of a giant wild boar, a predator so ferocious it feels less like an animal and more like a nightmare dragged into reality. The story begins with Jake Cullen, a farmer whose life is shattered when his grandson is snatched away by the beast. Accused of murder and left without justice, Jake dedicates himself to hunting the creature, driven by grief and obsession. Years later, journalist Beth Winters arrives to report on kangaroo hunting, but finds herself caught in the crossfire between violent locals and the razorback itself. When she disappears, her husband Carl travels from America in search of answers. What he finds is a land that doesn't forgive weakness, and a creature that doesn't stop once it has the scent of blood. Carl joins forces with Jake and a scientist named Sarah, and together they face not just the razorback, but the brutal reality of survival in the outback. Mulcahy transforms the landscape into something mythic. Sweeping shots of empty plains, jagged cliffs, and burning skies make every encounter with the beast feel inevitable, like nature itself is conspiring against the characters. The razorback isn't just a monster, it's an embodiment of the wild, unstoppable, and indifferent to human suffering. Though critics were divided on its release, Razorback has grown into a cult favorite. Its mix of stylized visuals, relentless suspense, and raw creature feature thrills make it stand out in the horror genre. By the end, the message is clear. In the outback, man is never at the top of the food chain. And when nature decides to strike back, survival becomes the only story worth telling. Saturn III, 1980. Saturn III is a sci-fi thriller directed by Stanley Donen, released in 1980. Set in a distant future, the film follows two scientists, Adam, played by Kirk Douglas, and Alex, played by Farrah Fawcett, who are stationed on a remote space station orbiting Saturn. Their peaceful existence is disrupted when a new robotic assistant, Hector, arrives to help them with their research. The film takes a dark turn as Hector, designed to be a highly advanced artificial intelligence, begins to malfunction and exhibit violent tendencies. As the story unfolds, we learn that the robot has been programmed with a sinister directive, leading to tension and horror as it becomes a threat to both Adam and Alex. Kirk Douglas delivers a compelling performance as the strong-willed Adam, while Farrah Fawcett portrays Alex, whose vulnerability adds depth to their relationship. The chemistry between the two characters is central to the film, highlighting themes of love, trust, and survival in a hostile environment. Visually, Saturn III features impressive set designs and special effects for its time, capturing the stark and isolated beauty of the space station. The film's atmosphere is enhanced by a synth-driven score that heightens the suspense and emotional stakes. Clocking in at 97 minutes, Saturn III explores the consequences of technological advancement and the potential dangers of artificial intelligence. As the tension escalates, viewers are drawn into a gripping narrative that examines the fragility of human relationships in the face of existential threats. Despite receiving mixed reviews upon its release, Saturn III has garnered a cult following for its unique premise and memorable performances. It stands as a thought-provoking entry in the science fiction genre, challenging audiences to consider the ethical implications of technology and the human condition. As you watch Saturn III, prepare for a thrilling journey that blends elements of horror and science fiction, ultimately questioning what it means to be truly human in an increasingly mechanized world. Skinner, 1993. Skinner, directed by Ivan Nagy in 1993, dives into the disturbing psychology of its titular character, played by Ted Raimi. On the surface, Dennis Skinner seems like a mild, awkward man. But beneath that exterior lurks a violent predator who stalks and murders women, peeling away more than just their lives. The film is grim and confrontational, blending slasher conventions with uncomfortable psychological intensity. Raimi's performance is chilling. He plays Dennis with a mix of vulnerability and menace, making the character both pathetic and terrifying. Tracy Lords co-stars as one of his potential victims, bringing grit and strength to a role that grounds the otherwise unflinching brutality. What sets Skinner apart from more straightforward slashers is its willingness to lean into the disturbing rather than the sensational. The violence is grotesque, yes, but it's the character study that lingers. The sense of watching someone whose facade is always on the verge of cracking, revealing the horror beneath. Skinner isn't for the faint of heart, but it stands out as one of the more unsettling direct-to-video horrors of the 90s. It's raw, disturbing, and unforgettable, lingering like a stain long after it's over. Beyond the Door, aka The Devil Within Her, 1974. Back in the 1970s, after The Exorcist took the world by storm, a wave of possession movies followed. One of the most infamous is Beyond the Door, directed by Ovidio G. Assanitis. Released in 1974, this Italian-American production leans into the same themes of demonic control and family unraveling, but it has its own strange energy that helped it carve out cult status. The story follows Jessica Barrett, played by Juliette Mills, a young woman in San Francisco who suddenly finds herself under the influence of a dark force during her pregnancy. At first, it's little things, odd behavior, violent outbursts, but soon it's clear she's being overtaken by something evil. Her husband Robert, played by Gabriele Lavia, is caught in the middle, trying to protect their kids, while Jessica becomes less and less herself. Richard Johnson shows up as Dimitri, a mysterious man who seems like he's there to help, but his real intentions are questionable from the start. What makes Beyond the Door memorable isn't just the possession sequences, though it delivers plenty of creepy faces, demonic voices, and supernatural chaos. It's the weird little touches. Jessica's kids, for example, have some of the strangest, almost comedic dialogue you'll hear in a horror movie, and it gives the film this bizarre tone where you're not sure if you're supposed to be scared or laughing. That offbeat mix has helped it stand out from being just another Exorcist knockoff. Warner Brothers even sued the filmmakers, claiming it borrowed too heavily from their hit, but the controversy only fueled its reputation. Audiences were curious, and over time, the film developed a loyal following among fans of Italian horror and campy cult cinema. It's not a polished movie. The pacing is uneven, and some scenes are unintentionally funny. But that's exactly why people still talk about it today. Beyond the Door is one of those so bizarre it works horror relics from the 70s, a mix of possession chills, family drama, and oddball moments that stick in your memory long after the credits roll. The Survivor, 1981. Some disasters end in fire and wreckage. Others live on in the minds of those who walk away. In David Hemmings's 1981 film, The Survivor, tragedy is only the starting point, as survival becomes a curse, steeped in mystery, guilt, and the supernatural. The story follows Ken, the lone survivor of a devastating plane crash that claims his wife and many others. Emerging from the wreckage alive should feel miraculous, but for Ken, it sparks a spiral of visions and unexplainable events. He begins to see shadows where none should exist, hear voices in empty rooms, and witness objects appear and vanish, as if reality itself is slipping out of his grasp. Is he being haunted by the spirits of those who died, or is his own guilt rewriting the world around him? That uncertainty drives the film's tension, trapping both Ken and the audience in a haze where grief, trauma, and the possibility of the supernatural bleed together. Hemmings leans on atmosphere rather than spectacle. Interiors are cloaked in oppressive shadows. Light flickers unnervingly, and every sound carries the suggestion of something lurking just beyond view. The pacing is deliberate, letting unease seep in gradually until even stillness feels threatening. As Ken encounters others who may or may not share his visions, the line between external haunting and internal collapse becomes impossible to define. By the climax, it's clear that the real horror isn't just the crash itself, but the weight of survival and the torment it brings. The Survivor stands out as a psychological ghost story where the terror is as much in the mind as in the world beyond. It's haunting not for what it shows outright, but for the uncertainty it leaves behind, lingering long after the screen fades to black. Ticks, 1993. Ticks, directed by Tony Randall in 1993, is a slimy creature feature delight that takes the backwoods survival trope and injects it with grotesque body horror. The story follows a group of troubled teens sent to a wilderness retreat, only to discover the woods are crawling with oversized, mutated ticks. The culprit: illegal steroid experiments on marijuana crops that have turned the parasites into relentless predators. What makes Ticks so effective is its mix of camp and genuine nastiness. The practical effects are wonderfully disgusting. Oozing transformations, bursting skin, and crawling infestations that make your skin itch just watching. Each attack escalates the tension, but there's also a streak of dark humor, the film never taking itself entirely too seriously. It's a movie about survival, yes, but also about facing fears both external and internal. Each character is tested by the grotesque creatures, but also by their own insecurities and conflicts. For horror fans, though, the real star is the sheer creativity of the monster effects. Gooey, over-the-top, and unforgettable. Ticks is pure 90s VHS horror. Gross, pulpy, and endlessly entertaining. It's the kind of movie you put on knowing it'll make you squirm and laugh in equal measure. Tourist Trap, 1979. Tourist Trap is a surreal and unsettling horror film that plays with the line between reality and illusion. Directed by David Schmoller, this 1979 movie follows a group of young travelers who find themselves stranded near a remote roadside museum filled with mannequins that feel far too lifelike. The story begins when the group's car breaks down on a lonely stretch of highway. They stumble upon the museum, run by the eerie and unsettling Chuck Connors. At first it seems like a quirky roadside attraction, but the atmosphere quickly shifts as the travelers realize that the mannequins aren't as inanimate as they appear. Strange occurrences escalate, tension mounts, and one by one the group becomes trapped in a nightmarish situation they can't escape. What makes Tourist Trap so memorable is its blend of psychological horror and supernatural eeriness. The film leans heavily on suspense rather than gore, using clever camera angles, lighting, and sound design to create a constant sense of unease. The mannequins themselves are a brilliant source of dread, their lifeless eyes and frozen expressions keeping both the characters and viewers on edge. The performances help elevate the tension, with Connor's portrayal of the sinister Slauson providing a perfect anchor for the film's strange, dreamlike horror. The young travelers react with believable fear and confusion, which grounds the more surreal elements and makes the danger feel real. By the climax, Tourist Trap delivers a series of inventive, tense sequences that combine supernatural suspense with psychological terror. The story's eerie, almost hypnotic quality leaves a lingering sense of disorientation and fear, making it a standout among late 70s horror films. For fans of atmospheric horror that blends suspense, surrealism, and inventive scares, Tourist Trap is a hidden gem. It's the kind of film that stays with you, making you second-guess the safety of mannequins long after the credits roll. Return of the Living Dead 3, 1993. Return of the Living Dead 3 takes the familiar zombie genre and gives it a darker, more emotional twist. Directed by Brian Yuzna, this 1993 installment follows Kurt Reynolds and Julie Walker, a young couple whose love is tested in the midst of a deadly outbreak caused by a military experiment gone wrong. When Julie is accidentally killed during the experiment, Kurt makes a desperate choice. He uses the reanimation serum on her. Unlike typical zombies, Julie retains fragments of her human emotions and memories, creating a haunting and complex bond between the two. Their struggle is no longer just about survival. It becomes a story of love, grief, and the terrifying consequences of defying life and death. The film doesn't shy away from its horror roots. Practical effects and makeup bring Julie's transformation to life in vivid, sometimes grotesque detail. As her body deteriorates, the tension rises, blending elements of body horror with the emotional weight of her struggle to cling to humanity. These sequences are both unsettling and strangely poignant, giving the film a unique edge compared to standard zombie fare. Mindy Clark delivers a standout performance as Julie, capturing both vulnerability and the eerie menace of a creature caught between life and death. J. Trevor Edmonds' Kurt anchors the story, portraying the desperation of a man trying to save the woman he loves while grappling with the unintended consequences of his actions. The tone of the film balances horror with emotional depth. It's darker and more serious than its predecessors, but it still carries the series' signature blend of macabre humor and social commentary. By the end, the film leaves a lasting impression, exploring themes of love, sacrifice, and identity in the face of overwhelming circumstances. Return of the Living Dead 3 may not have reached the iconic status of the original, but it stands out as a thoughtful and chilling entry in the series. It's a horror film that lingers, asking viewers to consider what it truly means to be alive and what we're willing to risk for the people we love. Blue Sunshine, 1977. Blue Sunshine, directed by Jeff Lieberman in 1977, is a paranoid, slow-burning horror thriller that perfectly captures the unsettling anxiety of the late 70s. The story begins with a string of mysterious murders in Los Angeles, each committed by seemingly ordinary people with no apparent motive. As the plot unfolds, it becomes clear that all the killers once ingested a batch of the experimental hallucinogenic drug Blue Sunshine a decade earlier. The effects of the drug don't appear immediately. They fester for years before triggering violent psychosis, leaving the audience with a creeping sense of dread that anyone could be affected at any moment. The film excels at tension and atmosphere. Urban landscapes are shot in muted tones with empty streets, shadowed alleyways, and flickering lights, emphasizing the isolation and unpredictability of the threat. The cinematography often lingers on mundane moments that suddenly become terrifying, reminding viewers that horror can emerge from the everyday. The narrative is carefully paced, slowly revealing the connections between victims and building a sense of paranoia that permeates every scene. Blue Sunshine isn't just a thriller about random killings. It's a commentary on the fragility of the human mind, the dangers of experimentation, and the anxieties of an era obsessed with drugs and social change. The performances amplify the tension, with ordinary people turning unpredictable in subtle yet shocking ways. By the climax, the film's slow burn explodes into moments of chaos that are both horrifying and mesmerizing, leaving viewers questioning how fragile sanity can be when pushed to the edge. For 70s horror fans, Blue Sunshine remains a standout. It's an unnerving atmospheric experience, combining psychological dread, social commentary, and the uneasy strangeness that made obscure 70s films so unforgettable. Patrick, 1978. For 3 years, Patrick has lain motionless in a hospital bed, eyes open, body unresponsive, seemingly locked away from the world. To most, he looks like a harmless coma patient. But in Richard Franklin's 1978 film, Patrick, that silence hides something terrifying. An active, calculating mind with psychokinetic powers. Assigned to his care is nurse Kathy Jacquard, played by Susan Penhaligon. At first, she treats Patrick as any other long-term patient. But strange events begin to ripple through the clinic. Equipment behaving oddly, people injured in bizarre accidents, and a creeping sense that Patrick is aware of everything around him. When he begins to communicate through a typewriter, it becomes clear he's not only conscious, but also obsessed, fixated on Kathy in ways that quickly turn dangerous. What sets the film apart is its restraint. Instead of leaning on gore or jump scares, Patrick builds its tension slowly through atmosphere and psychology. The sterile hallways of the Roget Clinic become unsettling, every silence stretching a little too long, every glance from Patrick's wide, unblinking eyes carrying a threat. His powers make him terrifying, not because they're loud or flashy, but because they're invisible, subtle intrusions into the lives of those around him. There's also an ethical edge to the story. How do you care for someone who can control you without moving a muscle? Where does compassion end and self-preservation begin? That blend of suspense, moral unease, and Hitchcock-inspired pacing is what's given Patrick its lasting cult reputation. By the end, it's not just a story about a man in a coma. It's a story about obsession, control, and the frightening possibility that even the most helpless figure might be the most dangerous one of all. Let's Scare Jessica to Death, 1971. Some horror films rely on monsters, blood, or loud jump scares. Let's Scare Jessica to Death isn't one of them. Instead, it creeps under your skin slowly, leaving you unsure of what's real and what's imagined. The movie follows Jessica, played brilliantly by Zora Lampert, who moves with her husband to a quiet farmhouse in the countryside. She's just come out of a stay in a psychiatric hospital, and this new life is supposed to be a fresh start. But almost immediately, Jessica begins hearing whispers, seeing things she can't explain, and feeling like something or someone is watching her. Soon she crosses paths with a strange young woman who may not be who she seems. Is this newcomer a ghost, a vampire, or just another trick of Jessica's fragile mind? That's the unsettling tension that drives the entire film. What makes Let's Scare Jessica to Death so powerful isn't big flashy scares. It's the atmosphere. The farmhouse and its surroundings are shot in this eerie, dreamlike way where even silence feels threatening. The soundtrack, filled with hushed voices and strange noises, only makes you feel more trapped in Jessica's unraveling world. At its core, the film is about the fear of losing control of your own mind. The horror doesn't come from an external monster, but from not knowing whether what you're experiencing is real. Lampert's performance nails this. Her fragile, haunted presence keeps you hooked and unsettled from start to finish. By the time the credits roll, the film doesn't give you easy answers. Instead, it leaves you with a lingering unease, the kind that sticks with you long after. Let's Scare Jessica to Death is one of those quiet horror gems that proves you don't need buckets of gore to terrify. All it takes is mood, paranoia, and the terrifying possibility that the real horror is in your own head. The Witch Who Came from the Sea, 1976. The Witch Who Came from the Sea explores how trauma can fester and shape a person in terrifying ways. Directed by Matt Cimber, the film follows Molly, played by Millie Perkins, a woman struggling to navigate adulthood while haunted by a childhood marked by abuse and neglect. As the story unfolds, Molly's inner pain begins to surface in dark and violent ways. She embarks on a murder spree, targeting men who she feels have wronged her, and the film blends elements of horror with psychological drama. It's less about jump scares and more about the unsettling weight of a mind twisted by past trauma. Cimber's direction, alongside Robert Tom's screenplay, creates a surreal, dreamlike atmosphere that keeps the audience on edge. The coastal settings are captured in all their gritty, windswept eeriness, emphasizing the isolation and emotional turbulence that Molly experiences. Millie Perkins delivers a layered performance, portraying Molly's vulnerability and simmering rage with quiet intensity. The film's shocking moments are punctuated by a sense of melancholy and unease, challenging conventional horror tropes and giving the story a reflective, almost poetic edge. While it courted controversy upon release for its graphic and psychologically intense content, the film stands out in the exploitation genre as something more introspective and disturbing than many of its contemporaries. It's a story about the long shadow of trauma, the complexities of vengeance, and the thin line between victim and perpetrator. By the end, The Witch Who Came from the Sea leaves a lasting impression. It's haunting, thought-provoking, and deeply unsettling, a film that lingers in your mind as you reflect on Molly's journey and the darkness that can arise when pain goes unresolved. Demons 2, 1986. Demons 2 picks up the chaotic, blood-soaked energy of Lamberto Bava's original, taking the horror from a movie theater to the confined, tense environment of a high-rise apartment building. Released in 1986, this sequel continues to explore the terrifying effects of demonic possession, while adding a clever meta-twist that sets it apart from its predecessor. The story centers on Sally, a young girl who is innocently watching a screening of the first Demons movie on television. But as the familiar horrors play out on screen, reality begins to warp. The demonic forces from the film seem to seep into the real world, turning the residents of the building into possessed killers. What starts as a birthday celebration quickly spirals into a frantic fight for survival. Bava's direction keeps the pace relentless. The film is packed with practical effects that are both gruesome and inventive, from horrifying transformations to chaotic, claustrophobic sequences as the demons stalk the narrow hallways. The heavy metal soundtrack drives the tension, creating an electrifying atmosphere that keeps viewers on edge throughout. Beyond the gore, Demons 2 plays with the idea of media influencing reality. Watching horror on a screen becomes deadly, blurring the line between fiction and real-life terror. This concept adds a clever layer to the film, giving it a thought-provoking edge amid the carnage. The performances, particularly by the young actress playing Sally, add a sense of vulnerability that contrasts with the over-the-top madness around her. Each character faces their own nightmare, and the combination of dark humor and relentless horror keeps the film unpredictable and engaging. While it wasn't universally praised upon release, the film has gained a devoted following over the years, celebrated for its inventive kills, memorable sequences, and energetic style. It's a wild, relentless ride that embodies the best of 1980s Italian horror. By the time it ends, viewers are left both exhilarated and unnerved, a testament to Bava's ability to mix inventive visuals, frantic pacing, and supernatural terror into a uniquely unforgettable experience. The Child, 1977. The Child is a slow-burning, unsettling horror that plays with the idea that innocence can hide something truly sinister. Directed by Robert Voskanian, the story follows Elysiane, a young woman who takes a job as a housekeeper at a remote farmhouse, tasked with looking after an 11-year-old girl named Rosalie. At first, Rosalie seems like any other child, quiet and polite, but it doesn't take long for Elysiane to notice something off. The girl's behavior is odd, her world filled with strange rituals and shadowy companions that don't quite seem human. As Elysiane digs deeper, she discovers that Rosalie's mother has recently died under mysterious circumstances, and that the child has a terrifying connection to the undead. The film thrives on atmosphere. The isolated farmhouse, the creaking floors, and the eerie sound design all contribute to a growing sense of unease. Even though the performances feel a bit uneven at times, the tension keeps you on edge, because you never quite know what Rosalie is capable of. As the story unfolds, Elysiane is drawn deeper into Rosalie's dark world. The child's supernatural influence becomes impossible to ignore, and the line between reality and horror blurs. The climax is intense, revealing just how malevolent Rosalie truly is, and cementing the film's eerie reputation. The Child may not be widely known, but it captures a distinctive 1970s low-budget horror vibe. Its combination of psychological tension and supernatural dread makes it a fascinating watch for fans of vintage horror looking for something offbeat and haunting. By the end, the film leaves you with that lingering feeling that even the most innocent faces can hide terrifying secrets, a darkness that stays with you long after the screen goes black. Messiah of Evil, 1973. Messiah of Evil is one of those rare cult horror films that feels less like a traditional story and more like a fever dream. Directed by Willard Huyck and Gloria Katz, the movie drops you into the lonely seaside town of Point Dune, where a young woman named Arletty arrives searching for her missing father. From the start, something feels off. The town is strangely quiet, its few remaining residents acting as if they're under some kind of spell. Arletty starts to uncover pieces of a disturbing mystery. Her father's cryptic journals, bizarre paintings, and whispers of an ancient prophecy tied to the ocean itself. What really makes Messiah of Evil stand out isn't just the plot, but the mood it creates. The film has this dreamlike, almost hypnotic quality. Scenes drift from one unsettling moment to another, strangers standing silently on the beach at night, blood-red skies, or a chilling sequence inside a movie theater that builds to one of the film's most unforgettable shocks. Mariana Hill is great as Arletty, playing a character who's constantly caught between logic and madness. Around her, the supporting cast feels just as strange. Michael Greer as the enigmatic drifter Tom, and Elisha Cook Jr., who seems to know more than he's letting on. Like a lot of 70s horror, the film mixes supernatural dread with social unease. It's not about quick scares, but about atmosphere and the creeping sense that you've stepped into a nightmare you can't wake from. Messiah of Evil may not be as well known as other cult horror films of its era, but for those who discover it, it sticks. It's eerie, surreal, and full of imagery that stays with you long after the credits roll. Dust Devil is a haunting horror film directed by Richard Stanley, set against the stark backdrop of the Namibian desert. The story revolves around Wendy Robinson, played by Chelsea Field, who escapes her abusive husband. While on the run, she picks up a mysterious hitchhiker portrayed by Robert John Burke, unaware that he is a shape-shifting demon who preys on lonely people. As Wendy's journey unfolds, the film intertwines her fate with that of a police detective, Ben Mukarab, played by Zakes Moke, who is investigating a series of gruesome murders. The narrative explores themes of isolation, fear, and the supernatural, creating an atmosphere of tension and dread. With a runtime of 1 hour and 27 minutes, Dust Devil combines elements of folk horror, slasher, and mystery genres. The film is notable for its stunning cinematography, capturing the vast and desolate beauty of the Namibian landscape. This setting enhances the film's eerie tone, making the viewer feel the oppressive heat and isolation. Despite its troubled production history, which included various cuts and edits, the film has garnered a cult following. The original cut was significantly altered by distributors, but Richard Stanley later managed to restore it closer to his vision. Critics note that the film's poetic brutality and surreal imagery make it a unique entry in the horror genre. The score by Simon Boswell adds to the film's haunting atmosphere, complementing its visual style. The dialogue is imbued with mysticism, reflecting the film's exploration of deeper existential themes. Characters are well developed, and the performances, particularly by Burke and Moke, are compelling. Dust Devil stands out not only for its horror elements, but also for its reflection on human emotions and the darker aspects of the human psyche. It invites viewers to question the nature of good and evil, as well as the supernatural forces at play. As the credits roll, we are left with a chilling final image. Wendy, now entwined with the desert's essence, gazes into the horizon. The landscape shifts, revealing the faces of those lost to the Dust Devil, a haunting reminder that escape may be an illusion. The film concludes not with resolution, but with an unsettling sense of continuity, suggesting that the cycle of fear and isolation continues, echoing through the vast emptiness of the desert. Head of the Family, 1996. Head of the Family, directed by Charles Band in 1996, is a strange mix of horror, dark comedy, and B-movie absurdity. The story follows a scheming couple who stumble onto the Stackpole family, a clan of deformed siblings led by the grotesquely oversized head, Myron. Possessing advanced intelligence and telepathic powers, Myron manipulates his family and those unfortunate enough to cross their path. The film embraces its camp with glee, leaning into outrageous characters, exaggerated scenarios, and a tongue-in-cheek tone. While Myron is the focal point, a giant head with genius-level intellect, the other siblings contribute to the film's bizarre humor and unsettling atmosphere. It's part horror, part exploitation comedy, and fully aware of its own outrageousness. Instead of straight scares, Head of the Family entertains through its sheer weirdness, offering a grotesque spin on family dynamics and small-town scheming. As a full-moon production, it's exactly what fans expect: cheap, trashy, and highly entertaining in its own way. Head of the Family is a reminder that horror doesn't always have to terrify. Sometimes it just needs to be outrageous enough to stick in your memory. Malatesta's Carnival of Blood, 1973. Malatesta's Carnival of Blood, directed by Christopher Spieth in 1973, is a surreal, low-budget horror experience that thrives on atmosphere, disorientation, and dreamlike terror. The story follows a family searching for a missing son at a rundown carnival, only to discover that the park hides a nightmarish underworld ruled by the enigmatic Malatesta. Within this hidden world, ghouls dwell, preying on the unsuspecting, and the carnival itself feels alive, a labyrinth of fear and decay. The film's visual style is simultaneously eerie and unpolished, enhancing the sense of unease. Flickering lights, shadow-filled corridors, and bizarrely dressed performers create a chaotic, almost hallucinatory mood. The narrative is deliberately fragmented, echoing the unpredictability of a nightmare, where logic bends and the familiar becomes threatening. Every turn of the carnival's corridors and every grotesque tableau feels like a new level of tension and absurdity. Though the effects are simple, the film uses them effectively. The ghouls, the funhouse mirrors, and the claustrophobic spaces heighten the terror without relying on overt gore. Instead, it's the unknown lurking behind every corner, the unpredictability of Malatesta's world, that keeps viewers on edge. The experience is disorienting in a way that's perfect for late-night VHS watching: strange, unsettling, and hypnotically compelling. Over time, Malatesta's Carnival of Blood has become a cult favorite among fans of obscure 70s horror. Its uneven pacing, oddball visuals, and willingness to embrace the bizarre make it a perfect example of the kind of unusual cinema that thrived in the VHS era. For anyone seeking horror that feels both experimental and deeply unsettling, this carnival is one you won't soon forget. Deathbed, The Bed That Eats, 1977. Few films are as bizarre or audacious as Deathbed, The Bed That Eats, directed by George Barry in 1977. The premise is simple yet ridiculous, a bed that consumes anyone unlucky enough to lie on it. But the execution is surprisingly surreal and memorable. Herschel, a Vietnam vet struggling with personal demons, encounters the bed and is drawn into a series of horrifying, grotesque events as it claims victim after victim. The movie thrives on absurdity, mixing horror, dark comedy, and a uniquely dreamlike logic. Scenes of the bed, devouring its victims, are both grotesque and strangely mesmerizing. People, clothes, and objects disappear into the mattress, leaving nothing behind, while a ghostly narrator trapped in a painting provides commentary that is equal parts eerie and disorienting. The tension comes not from fast-paced scares, but from the relentless inevitability of the bed itself. It waits, silent and unyielding, for its next victim. The charm of Deathbed lies in its unapologetic strangeness. Low-budget effects, awkward acting, and deliberately off-kilter storytelling all contribute to an experience that feels like stumbling into a fever dream. It's exactly the kind of film that thrived on VHS, weird, experimental, and impossible to categorize. Every viewing feels like discovering a lost artifact, a piece of cinema that refused to play by the rules. Over the years, it has earned cult status, partly for its audacity, partly for its pure, unfiltered weirdness. Deathbed, The Bed That Eats is a perfect example of the VHS era at its most fearless, bold, grotesque, and unforgettable. It's the kind of movie that makes you laugh, cringe, and stare in disbelief all at once, a testament to the odd, wonderful side of horror that only the VHS era could produce. Deadbeat at Dawn, 1988. Deadbeat at Dawn, directed by and starring Jim Van Bebber, is a raw, uncompromising film that dives deep into gang violence, revenge, and the emotional toll of a life shaped by crime. The story follows Goose, the leader of the Ravens gang, who is ready to leave his violent past behind and start a new life. That plan is shattered when his girlfriend Christy is brutally murdered by a rival gang called the Spiders. Devastated and enraged, Goose embarks on a relentless quest for vengeance. He knows that each step could lead to his own death, but he is determined to see justice done. From the first scene, Deadbeat at Dawn immerses the viewer in chaos. Van Bebber's direction is fearless and energetic, capturing the grimy, decayed urban landscape where the story takes place. The violence is stylized but visceral, and the cinematography reinforces the tension, making each confrontation feel immediate and dangerous. Van Bebber's performance as Goose is powerful, portraying grief, rage, and determination in a way that drives the narrative forward. The film is a classic of underground 1980s cinema. It is unpolished, unapologetic, and deeply committed to its story. The score enhances the mood, while the gritty setting keeps the tension high from start to finish. Deadbeat at Dawn is about more than action. It is about the emotional weight of loss, the cycle of violence, and the choices people make when pushed to the edge. For anyone who appreciates cult classics with intense action, raw emotion, and a fearless approach to filmmaking, Deadbeat at Dawn is an unforgettable experience that lingers long after the credits roll. The Howling is a groundbreaking horror film released in 1981, directed by Joe Dante. The film is notable for its innovative take on the werewolf genre, blending horror with social commentary and dark humor. Based on the novel by Gary Brandner, the story follows news anchor Karen White, portrayed by Dee Wallace, who is sent to a remote commune after a traumatic encounter with a serial killer. As Karen and her husband Bill arrive at the secluded community known as the Colony, they quickly discover that it is home to a group of mysterious residents with a dark secret. The film expertly builds tension and atmosphere, utilizing practical effects and makeup by renowned effects artist Rob Bottin, which were groundbreaking for the time. The narrative explores themes of identity, transformation, and the primal instincts that lie within humans. As Karen begins to uncover the truth about the colony, the film transitions into a chilling exploration of werewolf lore, culminating in intense and memorable transformation sequences that have become iconic in horror cinema. The Howling is praised for its well-crafted screenplay and strong performances, particularly by Wallace and her co-stars, including Patrick Macnee and Dennis Dugan. The film balances suspense and gore with a satirical edge, poking fun at both the horror genre and societal fears of the time. With a runtime of 91 minutes, The Howling was a commercial success and received positive reviews, solidifying its place as a classic in the werewolf subgenre. It currently holds an IMDb rating of 6.6, reflecting its enduring appeal. The film's blend of horror, humor, and social critique, along with its impressive special effects, has influenced countless filmmakers and remains a beloved entry in 80s horror cinema. Its legacy continues to thrive, inspiring sequels and a dedicated fan base. Puppet Master 2, 1990. Puppet Master 2 continues the darkly imaginative story of André Toulon and his psychically animated puppets, diving deeper into the eerie world where life, death, and the supernatural collide. Directed by David Allen in 1990, this sequel picks up shortly after the events of the first film, following a group of researchers who are drawn into the deadly mysteries surrounding Toulon's creations. Led by the determined Megan Gallagher, played by Elizabeth McClellan, the team hopes to uncover the secrets of the puppets. But curiosity quickly turns into danger as the malevolent dolls, familiar faces like Blade, Pinhead, and Jester, spring to life to protect their master's secrets. Each puppet brings its own terrifying abilities and personality, and the practical puppetry and animatronics make their movements unnervingly lifelike, heightening the tension in every scene. At its core, the film explores more than just horror. Toulon's quest for immortality and the puppet's desire to remain animated give the story a philosophical edge, reflecting on the boundaries between life and death. This adds depth to the narrative, making the stakes feel both supernatural and personal. The sequel builds on the campy charm of the original, while upping the suspense and gore. Moments of dark humor are sprinkled throughout, balancing the tension and keeping viewers on edge. The performances, particularly from McClellan, ground the film, making the terror feel immediate as the human characters confront the relentless puppets. While it may not have reached mainstream acclaim, Puppet Master 2 has become a cult favorite. Fans appreciate its inventive premise, memorable characters, and the clever ways the puppets carry out their attacks. It's a film that entertains while expanding the lore of the franchise, setting the stage for future installments with style and creativity. By the end, the movie leaves a lingering sense of both fascination and unease. Puppet Master 2 is a thrilling blend of horror, dark fantasy, and clever storytelling, offering a unique puppet-driven nightmare that horror fans won't soon forget. Siege, 1983. Siege, also known as Self-Defense, is a tense urban thriller that combines action with social commentary. The story centers on a neighborhood plagued by crime. Frustrated by the increasing violence and the inability of authorities to maintain order, ordinary citizens band together to protect themselves. What begins as a defensive effort quickly escalates into full-blown retaliation, raising questions about morality, justice, and how far people are willing to go when the law fails them. The film captures the gritty reality of urban life in the early 1980s. Each character reacts differently to the crisis, adding depth and tension to the story. The action is relentless, and the claustrophobic setting heightens the sense of danger and urgency. Viewers feel the fear, determination, and emotional stakes of people fighting for survival. Siege is not only an action film, it is a study of courage, fear, and the human response to chaos. The narrative explores the consequences of violence and the blurred lines between right and wrong in desperate circumstances. Its intense, gripping sequences and morally complex characters make it a standout of the urban action genre. For viewers who enjoy street-level thrillers with social commentary and gripping tension, Siege offers a powerful, hard-hitting experience that remains relevant and compelling today. Hell Comes to Frogtown, 1988. Hell Comes to Frogtown is a campy action comedy directed by Donald G. Jackson, released in 1988. This 86-minute film features the iconic Roddy Piper as Sam Hell, a virile man in a post-apocalyptic world where most of the male population has been rendered sterile due to a nuclear catastrophe. In this bizarre setting, Sam is tasked with rescuing a group of fertile women kidnapped by humanoid frog creatures. The film blends science fiction and dark humor, making it a unique entry in the B-movie genre. With its over-the-top premise, Hell Comes to Frogtown embraces its absurdity, delivering a mix of action, comedy, and memorable one-liners. The film showcases a colorful cast, including Sandal Bergman and Julius Carey, who add to the quirky charm of the narrative. As Sam navigates the challenges posed by the Frogmen, the film explores themes of survival, masculinity, and the bizarre consequences of humanity's choices. With an IMDb rating of 5.5, Hell Comes to Frogtown has gained a cult following for its outrageous characters and entertaining blend of genres. It's a film that invites viewers to leave their expectations at the door and enjoy the ride. If you're in the mood for a wild, fun experience filled with cheesy effects and a dose of nostalgia, Hell Comes to Frogtown is definitely worth a watch. Necronomicon Book of the Dead is a horror anthology film that brings to life the chilling works of H.P. Lovecraft. Directed by Christopher Gans, Shusuke Kaneko, and Brian Yuzna, the film intertwines three separate stories linked by a wraparound narrative featuring Lovecraft himself, played by Jeffrey Combs. The film opens with Lovecraft exploring a mysterious library where he discovers the infamous Necronomicon, a book said to contain forbidden knowledge. As he reads, viewers are transported into three eerie tales of horror, each steeped in Lovecraftian themes of madness and the supernatural. The first segment, The Drowned, follows Edward de la Poer, a man who inherits an old hotel with a dark past involving the resurrection of his deceased family. This segment explores themes of love and obsession, culminating in a visually striking and gory climax. The second story, The Cold, centers on Dr. Madden, played by David Warner, who has developed a sinister method of prolonging life that requires a gruesome toll. This narrative delves into the horrors of immortality and the ethical boundaries of science, showcasing Warner's remarkable performance as a mad scientist. The final segment, Whispers, presents a fast-paced and nightmarish scenario where two police officers encounter horrific creatures in a subterranean labyrinth. This sequence is filled with grotesque imagery and intense action, embodying the chaos and terror of Lovecraft's world. With a runtime of 1 hour and 36 minutes, Necronomicon combines body horror, mystery, and the supernatural, offering viewers a visually dazzling experience. The film's special effects, crafted by Todd Masters, are particularly noteworthy, bringing Lovecraft's monstrous visions to life in a truly horrifying way. Despite its unique premise, Necronomicon received mixed reviews, holding an IMDb rating of 5.8 out of 10. Critics have noted that while the film has standout moments and impressive visuals, it struggles with pacing and coherence, particularly in the first segment. As the film draws to a close, Lovecraft's final words echo ominously. The true terror lies not in what we see, but in the knowledge we dare not confront. The screen fades to black, leaving viewers with a lingering sense of dread and the unsettling notion that the horrors of the Necronomicon may not be confined to fiction. Instead, they invite us to reflect on the darker corners of our own reality, suggesting that the real monsters may be the secrets we keep and the truths we avoid. Savage Streets, 1984. Savage Streets, directed by Danny Steinman, is a high-energy 1980s exploitation thriller that combines revenge, action, and gritty urban drama. The story follows Brenda, played by Linda Blair, a tough high school student whose life is thrown into chaos when a gang called the Scars commits a horrific crime against her disabled sister and her best friend. Devastated and enraged, Brenda decides to take justice into her own hands. Her quest for vengeance drives the story as she confronts the violent underworld of Los Angeles with courage, cunning, and relentless determination. From the very beginning, Savage Streets sets a dangerous tone. The streets are treacherous, and Brenda's world is unforgiving. She is a strong and fearless lead who refuses to let her loved ones suffer without consequences. One of the film's most memorable moments comes when she wields a crossbow in a tense and violent showdown, a scene that has become iconic within the genre. The performances are larger than life, in keeping with 1980s exploitation style. Linda Blair delivers a fierce and commanding performance. John Vernon plays the unsympathetic principal, and Linnea Quigley brings emotional stakes as Brenda's sister. The soundtrack pulses with 80s rock, enhancing the sense of energy and tension throughout the film. Savage Streets does not shy away from its sleazy and shocking elements. Nudity, violence, and over-the-top action all combine to create a memorable cult classic. Beyond the chaos, the film is a story about justice, loyalty, and standing up for the people you care about. For fans of 80s revenge thrillers with a strong female lead, Savage Streets is a wild, unforgettable ride. A Boy and His Dog, 1975. In A Boy and His Dog, directed by L.Q. Jones, we journey into a dystopian future where society has crumbled following World War IV. The film, based on a novella by Harlan Ellison, showcases a post-apocalyptic world where survival is an everyday struggle. The story follows Vic, played by Don Johnson, a young man wandering the barren landscapes of Arizona, accompanied by his telepathic dog, Blood. Their bond is uniquely formed, with Blood providing both companionship and guidance as they scavenge for food and navigate the dangers of their harsh environment. As the film unfolds, the duo's journey takes a darker turn when they encounter a mysterious underground society. This leads them into a web of intrigue and peril, challenging their survival instincts and testing the limits of their friendship. The film is notable for its dark humor and satirical take on human nature, with Blood often delivering witty commentary that adds a layer of complexity to the narrative. While some may find the pacing uneven, the film's inventive premise and unique character dynamics keep it engaging. With a runtime of just 91 minutes, A Boy and His Dog stands out as a cult classic, appreciated for its exploration of themes like loyalty, survival, and the absurdity of human behavior. It's a thought-provoking piece that invites viewers to reflect on the nature of companionship in a world stripped of civilization. If you're looking for a film that combines dark comedy with sci-fi elements, this one is definitely worth checking out. The House is a unique blend of horror and comedy, released in 1985, directed by Steve Miner. The film follows Roger Cobb, played by William Catt, a troubled writer who moves into his late aunt's creepy old house to work on his next novel. However, he soon discovers that the house is filled with sinister secrets and supernatural occurrences. As Roger attempts to settle in, he encounters a series of bizarre and terrifying events, including ghostly apparitions and nightmarish visions. The house seems to be a portal to his past, bringing forth memories and fears he'd rather forget, including the mysterious disappearance of his son. Joining the adventure are a cast of quirky characters, including Roger's friend, played by George Wendt, who adds a comedic touch to the chilling narrative. The film expertly balances humor and horror, creating a unique viewing experience that keeps audiences engaged. The house is notable for its practical effects and creative set pieces, which contribute to its eerie atmosphere. The film's mix of genres allows for a playful yet spooky tone, making it distinct in the 1980s horror landscape. Despite its lighter moments, the film touches on deeper themes of loss and regret as Roger confronts his past while battling the malevolent forces within the house. Though it may not have achieved the same level of fame as other horror classics, the house has garnered a cult following. It's remembered for its innovative approach to storytelling and its blend of genres, making it a fun and memorable entry in the horror comedy genre. With its combination of scares, laughs, and heartfelt moments, The House remains a cherished film for fans of 80s horror. The Kindred is a horror film released in 1987, directed by Stephen Carpenter and Jeffrey Obrow. The story revolves around Dr. Philip Lloyd, played by Rod Steiger, a geneticist who returns to his late mother's family home with a group of assistants to uncover the secrets of her groundbreaking research on rapid human evolution. As they delve deeper into the mystery, they discover that Philip has a monstrous, tentacled baby brother named Anthony, the terrifying result of his mother's experiments. With a rival scientist also on the hunt for Anthony, the tension escalates as Philip and his team race against time to find the creature before it falls into the wrong hands. The film features a blend of body horror and supernatural elements, with practical effects that create a chilling atmosphere. Alongside Steiger, the cast includes Kim Hunter and David Allen Brooks, whose performances add depth to the suspenseful narrative. The Kindred is noted for its eerie setting and engaging plot, though it has received mixed reviews over the years. It currently holds an IMDb rating of 5.7, reflecting its status as a cult classic among horror enthusiasts. Critics have praised its unique premise, which combines elements of science fiction and horror, and its exploration of ethical dilemmas in scientific experimentation. The film showcases impressive creature effects, particularly in its climax, where the true horror of Anthony is revealed. While some viewers find the setup slow, the payoff is filled with tense and shocking moments, making it a memorable entry in the genre. With its mix of suspense, horror, and drama, The Kindred remains a noteworthy film for those who appreciate 80s horror cinema, exploring themes of family, legacy, and the consequences of playing with nature. The Quiet Earth, 1985. The Quiet Earth is a haunting sci-fi film directed by Jeff Murphy, released in 1985. The story centers around Zach Hobson, a scientist who awakens to find himself inexplicably alone in a world devoid of human life. As Zach navigates through the empty streets of New Zealand, he grapples with the eerie silence and the psychological toll of isolation. The film effectively explores the existential dread that accompanies being the last person on Earth. It raises profound questions. What would you do if you were truly alone? How would you cope with the freedom and loneliness? Zach's desperate search for other survivors eventually leads him to two individuals, Joanne and Appy. Each character brings their own agenda and secrets, complicating the dynamics of their fragile relationships. As they attempt to understand their new reality, tensions rise, and the film delves into themes of trust, survival, and the darker aspects of human nature. Visually, The Quiet Earth is striking, with stunning cinematography that captures the desolate beauty of its New Zealand setting. The atmosphere is thick with suspense, expertly building tension as Zach's mental state deteriorates. The film deftly balances moments of introspection with sudden bursts of action, making for an engaging narrative. The film's climax leads to a thought-provoking and ambiguous conclusion that lingers long after the credits roll. It challenges viewers to reflect on the nature of existence and the human condition, making it a standout piece of cinema. With a runtime of 91 minutes, The Quiet Earth is a unique gem that deserves recognition. It has garnered a dedicated following over the years for its originality and depth, often being hailed as one of the first significant sci-fi films produced in New Zealand. As you immerse yourself in this atmospheric journey, you may find yourself contemplating the fragility of society and the essence of what it means to be human. The Quiet Earth is not just a film about survival, it's a meditation on isolation and the complexities of human relationships. The Man Who Fell to Earth, 1976. In The Man Who Fell to Earth, we meet Thomas Jerome Newton, portrayed by the iconic David Bowie. This film, released in 1976, blends elements of drama and science fiction, creating a narrative that is both intriguing and complex. Newton, an alien from a dying planet, arrives on Earth with a mission to find a way to transport water back home. But as he navigates human society, he encounters challenges that stem from his own alien nature, a burgeoning romance with Mary Lou, played by Candy Clark, and the greed of those around him. The film's unique visual style captures the essence of the 1970s, with Rogue's bold editing and striking cinematography immersing viewers in Newton's disorienting experience. Throughout the film, we see a deep exploration of themes like isolation and the corrupting influence of capitalism. Notably, the film's structure is non-linear, often leaving audiences with more questions than answers. The juxtaposition of time and the surreal imagery heighten the sense of alienation, making it a true cult classic. Despite mixed reviews upon its release, The Man Who Fell to Earth has garnered a dedicated following over the years, attributed to its artistic ambition and Bowie's enigmatic performance. With a runtime of 2 hours and 19 minutes, it's a film that invites reflection and discussion long after the credits roll. If you're looking for a thought-provoking journey through the lens of sci-fi and art, this film is a must-watch. Castle Freak is a horror film directed by Stuart Gordon, based on an H.P. Lovecraft story. The plot follows John Riley, played by Jeffrey Combs, who travels to Italy with his wife Susan, portrayed by Barbara Crampton, and their blind daughter Rebecca, played by Jessica Dollarhide, after inheriting a mysterious castle. As the family explores their new home, they quickly discover that they are not alone. A deformed creature, a product of a dark family secret, lurks in the castle's shadows. This castle freak has been chained away, hidden from the world, but soon begins to wreak havoc on the unsuspecting family. The film explores themes of guilt, family trauma, and the consequences of past sins. John's character is haunted by a tragic accident in which he killed their son while driving drunk. This backstory adds emotional depth, highlighting the family's fractured relationships and the weight of guilt they all carry. With a runtime of 1 hour and 30 minutes, Castle Freak blends elements of drama, horror, and mystery. The film is filled with graphic violence and unsettling imagery, including dismemberment and intense gore, which has garnered it a cult following among horror fans. The cinematography effectively captures the eerie atmosphere of the castle, enhancing the sense of dread as the family confronts both their internal demons and the external threat posed by the creature. The performances, especially by Combs and Crampton, are compelling, bringing authenticity to their characters' struggles. Critically, the film holds an IMDb rating of 5.9 out of 10. While it may not reach the heights of Gordon's previous works like Reanimator, it is considered one of the more notable horror films of the 1990s. The makeup and special effects are praised for their creativity, particularly the design of the creature, which embodies the film's grotesque horror. In conclusion, Castle Freak stands as a unique entry in the horror genre, combining psychological depth with traditional monster elements. It challenges viewers to reflect on the nature of monstrosity, both physical and emotional, making it a compelling watch for fans of horror. In the Mouth of Madness, 1994, reality bends and crumbles in John Carpenter's In the Mouth of Madness, a 1994 descent into cosmic horror and madness. The story follows insurance investigator John Trent, played by Sam Neill, hired to track down missing horror novelist Sutter Kane. Kane's books are said to drive readers insane, and as Trent digs deeper, he realizes fiction and reality are beginning to merge. The film unfolds like a labyrinth. Small cracks in the world widen into gaping fissures, readers go mad, towns appear and vanish, and Kane's words seem to rewrite existence itself. Trent, skeptical at first, finds himself pulled into a world that refuses to obey logic. Carpenter builds the tension through surreal imagery and escalating paranoia, making the audience question every scene just as much as Trent does. In the Mouth of Madness is deeply indebted to Lovecraft's legacy of cosmic horror, where human understanding is dwarfed by forces too vast and alien to comprehend. But Carpenter adds his own flair: dark humor, a relentless pace, and a willingness to push the nightmare to its breaking point. By the film's climax, Trent's grip on reality has fully unraveled, leaving the audience trapped in the same disorienting spiral. It's not just a horror story, it's a story about horror itself and the dangerous power of stories to reshape the world. In the Mouth of Madness is unsettling, imaginative, and one of Carpenter's most enduring cult classics. A film where the scariest part isn't the monsters, but the realization that you can no longer trust what's real. Brainscan, 1994. Brainscan, directed by John Flynn in 1994, is a techno-horror gem that captures both the thrill and danger of early virtual reality. The film follows Michael, a reclusive teenager obsessed with horror games, played by Edward Furlong. When he tries a mysterious new interactive game called Brainscan, he discovers that what happens inside the game has real-world consequences. At first, it feels like the ultimate rush, ultra-violent gameplay, with no rules, no limits, and no consequences. But Michael soon realizes the game is more than just entertainment. The murders he commits in virtual reality begin occurring in reality. And at the center of it all is Trickster, a sinister, flamboyant guide who pushes Michael further into the nightmare. The movie mixes slasher thrills with sci-fi paranoia, exploring the idea of technology blurring the line between fantasy and reality. The Trickster, with his bizarre charisma, embodies temptation itself, always urging Michael to go one step further, to give in to darker urges. Brainscan stands out as a strange, stylish time capsule of 90s culture. Cyberpunk aesthetics, VHS horror energy, and early anxieties about what immersive media could do to the human mind. It's campy, eerie, and oddly prophetic, suggesting that sometimes the real horror isn't what's on the screen, but what happens when the screen refuses to let you go. The Manitou, 1978. The Manitou is a supernatural horror film directed by William Girdler that blends Native American mysticism with campy thrills. Released in 1978, this 104-minute film features a unique storyline where a psychic's girlfriend discovers that a lump on her neck is actually the reincarnation of a 400-year-old demonic spirit. With an IMDb rating of 5.4, the film stars Tony Curtis as Harry Erskine, a con artist psychic who finds himself entangled in a battle against a powerful evil force. Supporting performances by Susan Strasberg and Michael Ansara add depth to the cast, while Burgess Meredith delivers a memorable turn as a quirky professor. The film's premise unfolds as Strasberg's character, Karen, experiences increasingly bizarre and terrifying events related to the growth on her neck. As the situation escalates, it becomes clear that an ancient spirit is attempting to return to the physical world, leading to a series of bizarre and often humorous confrontations. Girdler's direction is a mix of serious horror elements and unintentional comedy, making it a cult classic among fans of 70s cinema. The visual effects and practical effects, while dated, contribute to the film's charm, creating memorable and outrageous sequences, including a climactic showdown that takes the audience into a surreal confrontation with the supernatural. The Manitou stands out for its unique blend of genres and its exploration of themes like reincarnation and spiritual conflict. It's an entertaining ride filled with absurdity and unexpected moments, perfect for those who appreciate campy horror. As you watch, you'll find yourself immersed in a bizarre world where the lines between reality and the supernatural blur, leaving you with a mix of laughter and chills. Dark Star, 1974. Dark Star is a cult classic directed by John Carpenter, blending science fiction, parody, and dark comedy. Released in 1974, this 83-minute film takes a humorous and satirical look at space travel and the absurdities of life aboard a spaceship. The story follows a small crew on a decades-long mission to destroy unstable planets. As they drift through the far reaches of space, their mission becomes increasingly chaotic, revealing the crew's interactions and the challenges they face, particularly with an alien creature that causes unexpected troubles. The film is notable for its low-budget charm and creative special effects, showcasing Carpenter's early directorial talent. With a unique blend of slapstick humor and philosophical musings, Dark Star critiques the mundane aspects of space exploration and the human condition. Starring Dan O'Bannon, who also co-wrote the film, the characters are quirky and relatable, making their absurd situations all the more entertaining. The dialogue is filled with memorable exchanges, particularly between Lieutenant Doolittle and the ship's bomb, which leads to some thought-provoking and comedic moments. With an IMDb rating of 6.1, Dark Star has earned a place in the hearts of fans for its originality and humor. It's a film that invites viewers to appreciate the lighter side of sci-fi while also pondering deeper existential questions. If you're looking for a film that combines humor, creativity, and a touch of surrealism, Dark Star is definitely worth a watch. Phantasm 2, 1988. Phantasm 2 picks up the nightmarish, surreal world established in Don Coscarelli's 1979 cult classic. Released in 1988, this sequel follows Mike, played by James LeGros, as he continues his battle against the terrifying tall man, portrayed by Angus Scrimm. Years after his traumatic encounters, Mike is still haunted by memories of the sinister mortician and his deadly minions. The story begins with Mike escaping from a mental institution, determined to stop the tall man once and for all. He reunites with Reggie, the loyal ice cream vendor played by Reggie Bannister, who has been drawn back into the chaos despite his own fears. Together they embark on a mission to confront the tall man and save Liz, Mike's love interest, who has become a target in the villain's twisted schemes. What sets Phantasm 2 apart is its seamless blend of horror, fantasy, and science fiction. The film expands the mythology of the tall man while maintaining the surreal, dreamlike atmosphere that made the original so distinctive. Practical effects, inventive camera work, and imaginative creature design keep viewers on edge, creating a sense of dread that is both visceral and uncanny. The tall man remains a figure of pure menace, embodying the fear of death and the unknown. Angus Scrimm's performance adds a chilling gravitas to the role, making him one of horror's most enduring villains. The film also explores themes of loss, trauma, and the struggle to confront evil, giving the narrative an emotional weight beneath the fantastical horror. Fans of the series will remember the flying spheres, the tall man's signature weapons, which return with even more creative and lethal designs. These sequences, combined with a tense and atmospheric score, enhance the suspense and highlight the film's unique visual style. Although opinions were mixed when it first hit theaters, Phantasm 2 has earned a devoted following over the years. Its surreal horror, inventive storytelling, and memorable performances make it more than just a typical sequel. It's an essential chapter in the Phantasm saga. By the end, the film leaves viewers with that lingering sense of unease and wonder, a reminder that the tall man's shadow looms large, and in this world nothing is ever as it seems. Android, 1982. Android is a sci-fi film directed by Aaron Lipstadt, released in 1982. The story unfolds on a remote space station, where Dr. Daniel, played by Klaus Kinski, conducts secret experiments with androids. His primary creation, Max 404, portrayed by Don Keith Opper, is a curious android yearning to explore the world and experience human emotions. The film takes a sharp turn when a group of criminals seeks refuge on the station, leading to a tense clash between the android and the intruders. As violence erupts, the themes of identity, humanity, and the ethical implications of artificial intelligence come to the forefront. Max, with his childlike innocence and developing emotions, becomes the heart of the film. His interactions with Maggie, a character played by Bree Howard, highlight the complexities of love and desire in a world where androids are designed to serve humans. The dynamic between Max and Dr. Daniel reveals the scientist's obsession and the moral dilemmas surrounding his creations. At just 80 minutes long, Android manages to explore deep philosophical questions while maintaining a sense of urgency. The film's low budget is evident in its production quality, yet it compensates with intriguing storytelling and character development. The synth-heavy score and retro-futuristic visuals capture the essence of early 80s sci-fi. Despite its mixed reviews upon release, Android has garnered a following for its unique premise and engaging performances. Klaus Kinski delivers an unsettling portrayal of the mad scientist, while Don Keith Opper's performance as Max brings depth to the android character. As you watch Android, you'll find yourself reflecting on what it means to be human and the potential consequences of our technological advancements. The film invites viewers to ponder the nature of consciousness and the fine line between creator and creation. Android is an underrated gem that continues to resonate with audiences, making it a must-see for fans of science fiction and thought-provoking cinema. Chopping Mall is a cult classic horror film released in 1986, directed by Jim Wynorski. The story follows a group of young employees at a shopping mall who decide to stay after hours for a party. However, when a lightning storm causes the mall's robot security system to malfunction, the fun quickly turns into a deadly game of survival. The film features a mix of dark comedy and horror, highlighting the absurdity of its premise. The robot security guards, designed to protect the mall, become lethal threats as they hunt down the partygoers. The blend of campy dialogue, cheesy special effects, and over-the-top scenarios creates a uniquely entertaining experience. Starring Kelly Maroney as Allison, Tony O'Dell as Ferdy, and Russell Todd as Rick, the film showcases a cast of likable characters that contribute to its charm. The setting, filmed at the Sherman Oaks Galleria, adds a genuine mall culture vibe, creating a nostalgic backdrop for the chaos that ensues. With a runtime of 77 minutes, Chopping Mall has garnered a 5.6 rating on IMDb. While it received mixed reviews upon its release, it has since gained a dedicated fan base, celebrated for its blend of horror tropes and humor. The film is remembered for its memorable quotes, outrageous killings, and a satirical take on consumer culture. It embodies the spirit of 80s B-movies, making it a must-watch for fans of the genre who enjoy a good mix of thrills and laughs. That's our trip through the wild world of VHS-era cinema. If you enjoyed it, don't forget to like, subscribe, and let us know which movie stood out most. Check out our store at ejectmedia.etsy.com for more VHS treasures. And remember, always be kind and rewind, because every movie is someone's favorite.